It's time for Show Me the Franchise.
With Thomas and Frederick. With Thomas and Frederick.
It's time for Show Me the Franchise.
With Thomas and Frederick. With Thomas and Frederick.
Welcome to Show Me the Franchise, the podcast that talks about franchises of all shapes, sizes, backgrounds, genres, and types. I am one of your hosts, Tom Stadler, here, of course, with my usual co-host, the heavyweight champion of the world, Mr. Fred Dakin.
Hey, how you doing?
Hello, my dear Fred. We meet again. It's been a while since we've last met.
Yeah, I mean,
Feels like forever.
I feel like last time it went poorly, but as most sports movies, it's going to go much better this time, right? I'm feeling the formula.
You're going to feel like you're going to have your montage and get on that moment?
I'm going to pull a car by my waist. That's the thing they do. I'm going to get hit with a big boulder in the chest. I feel like getting hit in the chest is like the big training for boxing. That's what I learned this week.
It's true. There is something to that. I am a little upset that you did not acknowledge that I just dropped some Creed on you and you didn't notice.
I know. What am I going to do? I can't catch everything.
I guess that was my sacrifice. Fred.
Wow.
Do you see what I see?
I saw what you did there.
Yeah, yes. But we're not talking about Creed the band this week. We are, in fact, talking about the Creed movie franchise. The continuation / reboot / sequels to the Rocky franchise. And how closely tied these are to Rocky is a point that we'll definitely get into today. But Fred, we have a wonderful guest here to talk to us about Creed. The movies.
I was about to pull up the Super Bowl clip.
Can you take me higher?
That was beautiful.
Oh my God, that was cracking up.
Soulful silence.
It was. Can we say we dropped some notes on this? Or we drop some bars? Isn't that what the kids say?
Yeah.
Drop some bars. Anyway, here.
Drop some notes does sound like it fell out of your pocket versus actually singing.
It does actually. Yeah.
Neither sound cool when you say
Yeah,
it, just for the record.
No, not at all. It sounds like Eminem like trying to get on stage when he's throwing up mom spaghetti and all that, and he's like, "Oh no, I dropped my notes." Anyway, that's this week. Great comedian in the Milwaukee area, Miss Amy Westrup. Welcome to the show, Amy.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. I'm very happy to be here.
Did you have your own training montage before you got into the studio today?
I did. I pulled my Subaru Outback here, all the way from the North Shore by my pant loops, and I'm here. I've been doing a lot of conditioning. My core is engaged as we speak, so yeah, no, I'm ready to go. This is my favorite movie franchise of all time.
Yeah,
so I cannot even believe we're talking about it. I'm so excited.
I mean, we're pretty excited too.
Like cellular level excited.
And I was very nervous because I'm going to admit now, when we first started talking, you were like, maybe a sports episode. And I was like, oh.
Like, no
Because
thanks.
we just did a Brewers episode and John Egan was a lovely guy. I had a great time, but I was like, sports? But then you said Creed, sports movies, and then it circles back to my realm, which I love a sports movie.
I do too. I've seen them all. You name it, I've seen. I am a sports mutant, but sports movies, whew, sign me up all day long.
So what are some of your favorite sports movies, and why is Creed among your favorites of those?
Well, we were talking earlier about, some legal movies, and we were going way back. Like, one of my favorite sports movies is The Natural.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Right? Paul Newman. Actually, I also like a Bollywood film called Chakade India about the women's Indian field hockey team. It's like 3.5 hours long. It's extraordinary. There are Chariots of Fire. I mean, I go way back, but any sports movie. I grew up in a big family. There are 9 kids in my family. We played every sport known to man. We've got Division I hockey players. We've got, you name it, we played it because we had enough kids for our own team.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's all we ever did. Like, sun's out, go outside, play a sport. So, and we're constantly watching sports. And so, yeah, it brings the two worlds together. And I love it. I've seen them all. And the reason I love Creed, I don't know. I mean, there are many reasons that I love Creed. the timing of when the first Creed movie came out happened to coincide with my sister moving to Philadelphia. So I was just getting exposed to Philadelphia when it hit. And then for some reason, I love watching boxing, and I love boxing movies like Raging Bull. Was like my first entry point there. I've never boxed.
Okay.
I mean, I tried to do kickboxing one time. It hurt quite a bit.
Right.
I did not proceed. I've never been punched in the face. I've never punched anyone in the face. Well, I may have punched my sister in the face one time, but and it may or may not have been intentional. But there's something. It is violent, yes, but it is so beautiful to watch, and these like perfect human specimens, just brute force. But yeah, I don't know. There's something about it. I think boxing was a big deal. I grew up in Ann Arbor, but we watched all the Detroit teams. We went into Detroit for a lot of things.
Sure.
There were a lot of really great Detroit boxers like Tommy the Hitman Hearns, and like
Oh.
they had these huge boxing events in Detroit when I was growing up. And so I remember going to a Leon Spinks fight. I mean, like we would watch this stuff, and I don't know, it always appealed to me. And I happened to be on a plane. I think it was the first time I saw Creed. I was on a plane flying out west, and I'm like, oh, Creed, I'll watch that. And I literally was screaming on the plane, and because I was so excited. And the flight attendant told me to calm down, and ma'am, you're going to have to lower your voice. And I was just like, no, but he just knocked him out. And I was like, oh my God, like I was in goosebumps. So then going out, I watched Creed 1, and then flying back. It's a tradition now. Anytime I fly west, I watch Creed going out and Creed 2 coming back.
Oh, nice.
That's I don't know. It just gets you through. It's a perfect movie. Creed 1 is a perfect movie.
It's great.
I would
Start
agree
to
with that.
finish.
And I think something you even hit on there that, even going back to Raging Bull is something that boxing movies, I think, do so much better than a lot of other sports movies is they make you like feel the excitement and the adrenaline of the moment. And like, I mean, there's sports movies that do that. Like, like Major League, you can really kind of feel the moments, even though it's a comedy or whatever. But,
Yeah.
it's like, but I think even in like the box, like Rocky or like Rocky 2, Rocky 3, you're like, come on now, Rocky, you can get him. You can get him.
And that you can attribute to how it's shot,
Right.
right? I mean, the technology and the camera angles that they use, and the way all of those from Rocky 1 to Creed 3, the usage of the camera angles. I'm not a filmmaker. Pardon me, audience. I'm going to get all the terminology wrong, but it's so often from the viewpoint of the boxer.
Right.
Right?
Like
You're
that
not-
behind shot.
Yeah, and I think the takes are usually like one take.
Yes.
And start to finish. And I reading up on this like you do. A round is 3 minutes, but when you shoot it in a movie, it only lasts a minute and a half. But like the one, I think it's the final fight in Creed 1 that took 3 months.
Wow.
To like choreograph and stage and everything, and it's all one continuous shot using, I think it's one camera and one camera in the corner. It's really pretty extraordinary just from like a technical film, like shooting film point of view. So, but I think that's what made Rocky hit so well, pun intended, but because you were like in the ring.
Yeah.
Right.
In so many sports movies, it's like you're not on the field, you're not hitting the baseball, right? Like you are more of a spectator. In this, you just feel like you can feel the sweat. And like in Creed 3, when Dane takes his mouthpiece off to spit and 3 of his teeth get pulled out. I mean, you want to vomit, but then you're also like, oh my God. And like the sound of it, it's so brutal. But then it's like, holy cow, how is he going to get it? I don't know. It's insane. I don't know. It's absolutely captivating.
I think it benefits for like a boxing movie that it's also on one person's shoulders versus like a team. I love a team movie where you have that kind of interplay. but having one person at the front and also, like you mentioned, teeth falling out, broken ribs, maybe.
Yeah.
Like there is a little bit more on the line than some other sports movies. There's injuries in sports movies, but not to this level. So it adds that extra layer of like, you're more invested in this person because they might actually get really hurt.
Right. And I
Oh, no,
think
they're definitely getting
or
really
get
hurt.
killed in some point.
I know.
Rest in peace,
Yeah.
Apollo.
I mean, we basically don't have this movie without what happened in Rocky IV happening, right? So it's like, or this franchise, because it's definitely, and I love the point you made just there, Fred, because it's like in another team movie, like a Major League, I'll pull that. You know, you have essentially 3 leads. It's like Charlie Sheen, Tom Berenger, Wesley Snipes, and they're all kind of like, you have to have strong performances out of all those people. And I think sometimes you find in these movies that like some of the other players are not as compelling. So you're like, okay, so I don't really care. Like that guy, he just kicks good, you know, or something like that. And it's like, or, you know, that guy's a really good hitter, but it's like, but no, it's like here you get to get from one person's perspective, you get all like, you know, every emotion they're feeling, you get all their backstory. And I think especially setting up that story from Rocky IV and kind of picking up the pieces there to what made Donnie, it's like, yeah, there's just so much more than just being like another entry in the Rocky series. It really feels like its own movie.
Yep. And another compelling thing I would say about boxing movies over some other movies, which is still apparent in some, is there's a level of seediness too to the boxing world that they work into these movies, like where there's like
the promoters and
right.
yeah.
Yes.
It's a little bit of the double dealings, but actually I think what I loved about, and we'll just start with Creed 1, but I mean there's a lot of profound wisdom that is imparted on both sides, from Rocky
Right.
to Donnie and then Donnie back to Rocky, right? It's full circle. But the absolute respect that they give to Philadelphia,
Oh, for
to
sure.
the city of Philadelphia, to the entire, just the look, feel, sound, and smell of the city of Philadelphia. Then you put Rocky inside the city of Philadelphia, and Donnie is new to Philadelphia, so this is completely foreign to him. And he's like, "What's all this?" You know, he meets Tessa Thompson. She takes him out for a John. He's like, "What's a John? A John is everything in Philly." You know, and it's like, that doesn't make any sense. Of course it doesn't. It doesn't have to, because it's Philly. But what does make sense is that Rocky Balboa, I mean, there is a legitimate statue of Rocky Balboa in Philly, you know, right at the steps there. And that's unbelievable,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
like what it means to the city. And they capture that so perfectly and unapologetically, because it's not the most beautiful parts of Philadelphia where he's training.
Mhm.
He's in some of the worst parts of Philadelphia. That's
Right.
where the best boxing gyms are, right? And then they've got the motorbikes that go through, you know, they get the token cheesesteak in there. But it's like they capture that. And then Rocky comes in on it. And they do such a great job referencing that entire movie without reliving the entire movie.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
these snapshots, whether it's in the pictures that he has of the fights at Adrian's, you know, at his restaurant,
Mhm.
or just the subtle little comments that he makes to Donnie, like while they're training. And he's like, "Yeah, no, you know, time always wins." I'm going to get the quote. I actually have the quote, but time takes everybody out. It's undefeated.
Right.
And it's like some of the lines in this movie are just like, oh my God, they speak to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You can take some of these lines and like put it in your own life. And it's like, oh yeah, that's going to get me through the day.
Mhm. You could put most of these lines like under a picture of a cat hanging from like a string.
Yeah,
you
but with
know,
the
like
black eye.
right? Yeah,
Cat's
with
gonna have a black eye.
little punching glove too.
Yeah. Oh my God. A little punching glove. Not a boxing glove, a punching glove. I love
Careful.
it.
No, me, the sports guy.
You're gonna sell 100 of these to all the offices in America.
I love it.
God.
I think it's something though. There is something about what you said about Philadelphia being such a big part of this movie too, because I think we're also at a time where Philadelphia is pretty front and center in a lot of things. I mean, It's Always Sunny has been on for years. You know,
Oh,
we have
yeah.
Abbott Elementary on right now, where
Yep.
Philadelphia is such an important part of like being, you know, this like metaphor for like all of the education systems in America, especially in the inner cities and stuff. It's just like there's so many things, and yet it's like with all this history and all this stuff that goes on in Philadelphia, it does feel like unequivocally a sports city. You know,
Yeah.
it's like
Oh, without without a doubt.
Right.
Yeah, people love the Phillies. People love the Eagles. People
They love the Flyers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It-
The fanatic, Gritty. I mean, Gritty is the best mascot.
Gritty.
The NHL, Philadelphia Flyers.
Hold on.
Oh, come on.
I would love to see a picture of Gritty.
You will
At first I
recognize.
thought-
Why are you on this podcast?
I thought
my
this
friend?
was Elon Musk's wife that they're talking about.
This is Gritty.
That's
Oh,
Gritty.
yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah,
yeah, I was
that's
gonna
fine.
say you would.
I loved
recognize
him on
him.
Sesame Street.
It's pretty.
Sesame Street were shot at Philly. Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
it's pretty outstanding. Well, I think before we get too far
Sure,
into
sure.
it, we'll make sure the audience is on the same page with us. If anyone has happened not to experience the Creed movies before, Creed franchise, it's a continuation, as I mentioned, kind of a / reboot of the Rocky franchise. Focuses on Adonis Johnson, who changes his name, gasped, to Creed. And he goes by the name Donnie. It's short for Adonis. So Donnie Creed, who is the son of Rocky Balboa's rival turned friend, Apollo Creed. The rival from the very first Rocky movie, who he then rephases in the second movie, and then gets trained by in the third movie, and then watches die in the fourth movie. It's like, I mean, you kind of need that journey to know where you are now. To know that, like, yeah, like Apollo Creed, like revolved around Rocky's life, and as much as Rocky revolved around Apollo, all throughout that franchise, and that they would be inextricably connected once you get to the start of this story with Creed 1. And again, like I said, it's as much as you feel that DNA, and I think you mentioned it before, Amy, of Rocky throughout this, and we get so many hints about the first movie. This is very much Donnie Creed's story, or Donnie's story.
Yeah, but yes, absolutely. It's all about Adonis Creed, who, by the way, played by Michael B. Jordan,
Yes.
is perfectly and aptly named because he is the most beautiful human that has ever graced the silver screen, in my opinion. I mean, he's a great actor, but for this role, I mean, he is chiseled. He
For
is
sure.
the Greek god Adonis. I mean, he is
Mhm.
aptly named and appropriately named because Apollo, I mean, there is, if you go way, way back, I am no expert of Greek mythology, but Apollo, the god Apollo, had a lot of, he was, the sun god and an archer and all that stuff, but he also had a ton of extra, he had a lot of love interests.
Mm.
He wasn't really lucky in love, but he loved a lot of people, and he had a ton of offspring, a lot of demigods
Right.
as a result of him loving lots of people. So Adonis Creed is the result of an extramarital affair
Mhm.
that Apollo Creed has. So he is, so in keeping with that kind of Greek mythology. Now, Adonis in Greek mythology is not the son of Apollo,
Mhm.
but he is the son of some other extramarital goings on, or not marital, but extracurricular goings on between some other gods. And he is condemned to live part of his life with in hell and part of his life on earth.
Mhm.
And so we can get to that when we get to Creed 3, because I think that really this franchise is rooted in kind of Greek mythology. And
Yeah.
it's really, really cool. That's the extent of my Greek mythology knowledge as it relates to, I mean, we could go deep. I could go deeper, but I won't. But so Adonis Creed is, he has been living in hell.
Mhm.
He knows that he's the son of Apollo Creed. Nobody else knows that. And he's got the weight, and he wants to be a fighter.
Mhm.
And he is taken in by Apollo's wife because he's put in group homes, and he just fights all the time.
Right.
That's the quote. He's a great kid. He just fights all the time. And so she takes him in and takes him in and raises him. And, he's just constantly trying to live up to his father's name, but he's also at the same time trying to make it on his own. So he doesn't tell anybody he's a Creed,
Mhm.
but then the truth comes out. And what I was going to start to say is, although Philly is like really gritty and everything,
Gritty.
and you said, well, gritty, yeah, there we go. No, but you were saying, the seedy side of boxing. They have the boxing world in Philly in this movie has such the utmost respect
Right.
for Rocky that when one of his first fight, Creed's first, Donnie's first fight, is against this really really great kid that's like Olympian. And he's like, hey, can we just do a first fight? And they find out that he's got Creed blood, quote, he's got Creed blood. And he's like, hey, can we just keep this under wraps as a favor to me? And he's like, yeah, sure, Rock, sure, we'll do it. Even though it could have been a huge payday for this guy, right? He could have just shouted it from the rooftops. But that is the level of respect that they have for Rocky and all he's done for the city and and the boxing world. So that's really cool. And like, that's kind of the starting point. And then it just grows from there. And it's just awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, Adonis is just like, you open where he's just going down to Mexico to fight
Right.
and just kicking the crap out of people, but not very few swings. He's so good, but he's real raw. And he's kind of a wild man.
Yep, that's a real temperature setting scene, that Tijuana fight right at the beginning of one, just to kind of give you, and kind of says everything about the character and what to expect out of this reboot, requel, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
Based on the old films.
Yeah. But you're right, though. I think we do see, we do get a sense for what kind of story we're about to enter too. And it's like he's got that passion for fighting that it's just kind of in his blood, right? And you're like, whether or not he's willing to accept it or reject his name, it's like it's in his blood that he's this fighter. I mean, he even kind of fights like Apollo fought in the first movie, right? He doesn't waste any movements. He's very swift, and then he makes every hit count. And that was like completely opposite of Rocky. So it's like how you blend these styles. And what I always get a kick about ever watching every Rocky movie, every Creed movie, is just like all the skill sets they have to learn. I'm like, didn't they learn this already?
But hold on, let's back up, because I think in the first one, he's got some of the speed of Apollo, but he doesn't have his dad's, like he has the innate talent.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he's a little more Rocky-esque in the first one. Because I think in the second one is where he comes back and they fine tune it, because they go hard. They go, if you want to build yourself back up, you got to just take it down to the studs, and they rebuild him. And it's all footwork, and it isn't as much like if you watch some of the scenes in the first one, they're just throwing like roundhouses and stuff like that. And it's these huge uppercuts, kind of a la like Rock'em Sock'em Robots. But then I think it was such a great movie, but the boxing world was like, hey, not every knockout is achieved that way. So then in 2, they really focused more on like the faster glove speed and the tighter punches, and like those are just as effective. And so he became more like Apollo in the second one, I think. I think he was a little raw and more Rocky-esque in the first one.
Yeah, that was a great point. I think I definitely
Just my
agree.
opinion, having seen all of them
Right.
1,000 times.
You are well versed on the
in the
topic.
sweet science, right?
Yeah.
There we go.
No, I think you're spot on though, and I think that's probably why Rocky takes a shine to him too, right? Like we see that, and I think maybe we can start going through the plot and
Let's
through
go,
the
let's
beats of
go.
it, right? So I mean, we talked about it starts in Tijuana, and I mean, you can obviously take the reins at any point and start driving the plot synopsis, because you're doing you were doing a beautiful job, and I'm like this is better than the notes I've got.
We'll work together. We'll get through it. We'll get through it.
So he basically, he's got this passion now for fighting, and he decides he wants to pursue his dream of becoming a professional boxer, quits his day job at this Smith Boardley financial group, and is like, I'm going to go and audition at the elite Los Angeles boxing academy, the Delphi, or is it Delphi?
No. He doesn't go audition. He just shows up because that's his dad's old gym.
Right.
Delphi Gym. We're here to make champions, Delphi Gym, right? That's what they do. And he goes in and, oh my God, the trainer.
Wood Harris.
Duke?
Duke Jr.'s there.
Yeah.
So Duke was Apollo's trainer. It's his son. And he shows up and he's like, give me a shot. And he's like, nope. And he's like, I'm here to train. He's like, ain't nobody training you. No, and I'm going to make sure of it. Nobody's training you out in LA. And he's just like, fine, I'm going to Philly then. Because he can't get trained out there because Apollo died in the ring.
Right.
Right. And he's like, and he knows that he's Creed, because I mean they're family. They basically know each other. But he's like, no, ain't nobody training you. Hit the bricks. So he's like, fine. So he goes to Philly, and that's where it begins. But Delphi doesn't want anything to do with him, and not until the second movie.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, that's a good point. And oh man, so I fell down a little bit of a rabbit hole, even looking at the character of Duke.
He's so good.
Well, one, because
The actor
Wood is awesome.
Wood is so good.
Yeah, he is great. I remember him from Remember the Titans, and like,
Yes.
Well, if you also
oh my
think
God, can we
he
do one on that?
also
movie, too?
he had
He's in The Wire.
yeah, I was gonna say he
is The
had
Wire.
Michael B. Jordan killed in The Wire, didn't he?
is that right?
He sure did.
Yeah, that's what was
absolutely.
crazy about
Okay,
seeing
I've
those
never
two
seen The
ones.
Wire, so now
Oh,
I'm feeling-
sorry.
Okay, that's the next podcast.
Okay,
Then
we'll
you
do
got
that
some
next.
watching to do.
Yeah.
But so, okay, there was a little bit of a dispute as I was watching this because they call him Tony Burton in the third one. And I'm like, that doesn't seem right. I was like, I thought his name was Duke. So I looked
Yeah.
it up and then I was like, no, his name is Tony Duke Burton. Now, here's where things get interesting. So hang on, because he's Duke Jr., right?
Yeah.
So he's named after his dad. So the original character in Rocky 2, when they really finally give him a name, like Apollo's trainer, his name is obviously the same, Duke Burton. But his name was actually Duke Evers in that one. The actor's
You can't
name
have Tony
is
Evers.
Yeah, I was like,
Tony
Wisconsin.
Burton. The actor's name is Tony Burton. There was a take in Creed 2 or Rocky 2 where Carl Weathers accidentally called him Tony on camera, but it was such a good take or something like that that they just decided to run with it. We're like, we're going to canonize. His name is Tony Duke Evers. And I was like, wait. So then, but then when
Wow.
this franchise came, Creed, they renamed the junior to Tony Burton. And I think it was like a nod to the original actor who
Sure.
played Duke the senior. But then I'm like, I wonder though too if like the fact that his name is Tony Evers, I'm like, they're like, well, that's a governor of a state.
Yeah, I wonder if
But I don't know if Tony Evers was governor of Wisconsin when Creed came out, because it came out in
Well,
2016.
but and I think the actor that played Duke in Rocky, I think he had passed away like in 2015 or 2016.
Yeah, I think
So
you're
I
right.
think maybe the timing of it too, and so it was just an homage to them. But that's the other thing is so much of the cast. Like what I loved about, we'll probably get to it, but so many of the supporting cast members are like real boxers,
Yep.
right?
Right.
The way it's done is great. Like the sparring people, the stitch guy, the glove. I mean, those are real people
Yeah.
in the boxing community, and so again, just like so respectful of the entire boxing community. So it's very, very cool, and just lets you, because you said, you know, the thing with boxing is like it's just one guy out there. It's not a team sport. But these movies prove that, oh no, it is a team sport, because you got your guys in the ring. Like I'm your corner guy, I'm your cut guy,
Yeah.
like I'm your what's your bucket guy or whatever. They've all got these monikers, and they're all really important. One of the best scenes is when Stitch, he's icing his eye, and and he can't see out of his left eye. He's completely blind. And the ref's like, I'm calling it. And Rocky's like, we're gonna call it. He's like, don't call it. And he's like, how many fingers have I got holding up, Donnie? And he can't see, and Stitch is tapping him on the back of the neck with the number of fingers. That is unbelievable.
Right.
It's so awesome. Like I get goosebumps talking about it. That's what's so cool about it.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Those little details. That's not even a little detail, but like the thought, because you know that happens.
Oh, for sure. That
Right?
was definitely probably something passed on from a boxer to
Yeah,
a
no doubt.
screenwriter. Like,
Right. It's like,
doubt.
yeah, these, because you're right. They're like people who probably are involved with the sport have told like stories that they've heard about this.
That
'Cause
inside
certainly
boxing stuff.
It's like things that Hollywood writers can't know. As much as like I feel like Ryan Coogler is somebody who has his finger on the pulse of so many things. I mean, we'll get into Ryan Coogler in a little bit. Is who, you know, the director of this first one, which I think I'm not going to show my hand too much, is why it's, you know, one of the best of the franchise of all of them. But yeah, I think he's somebody who will listen to those types of details and will have the know-how to be like, all right, I'm going to work this into the script and make it real and make it feel like a big moment. Because yeah, it's like, the fact that it's like in like this world and you feel the realism. We've talked about it, right? These boxing movies still feel real as much as they are sensationalized in these moments
Sure.
and dramatized, but
But that's I think what I love about it so much is the boxing scenes in of themselves. They're not overly dramatized because it's such a dramatic, powerful, violent sport that it's just like, I mean, and so much of it is authentic. I mean, they're really punching one another, right? They're really taking hits. That's pretty extraordinary. But aside from all the boxing, the other characters, I mean, Tessa Thompson, oh my God, she's amazing in all of the movies, but an amazing, strong female lead. I would argue, I mean, I guess she's supporting, but she's unbelievable in that. And just like unapologetically, like, no, I'm gonna do, she even says, like, I'm gonna do mine. Like, you go do yours, I'm gonna do mine. And that's it. And she's got her own issues. She's got hearing issues. She's losing her hearing, and she's a musician. It's just like, I mean, you could have a whole offshoot just about her, you know. But the women in this movie are incredibly strong,
yes.
and carry him, you know, through it all. I mean, one could argue. I mean, they're just as important as Rocky is.
Oh,
for some of
absolutely.
these.
Right. He does a lot of it for Tessa Thompson, right? And I mean, she's great though. And I think it's something to be said to the fact that they are just kind of going through the same situation. They're both trying to like make a name for themselves. They're both kind of hustling in these hard to break into industries. I mean, becoming a getting a chance at a heavyweight championship or anything like that is not easy to come by. Trying to make it in a music career is not easy to come by. Harder, arguably, potentially, than becoming a professional boxer, you know?
Yeah, like, so when they meet, she's already established, her name's Bianca.
Right.
Her character is Bianca, and she's got like a residency at this big place in Philly, like where the Roots started, where all these great bands and individual acts got their start. And she's like, I've worked really hard for that. And he comes in, and of course he's an egomaniac, right? He's won this big fight. Everyone's calling him like Baby Creed. He takes exception with it and ruins one of her big shows. And it's just like, no, like, grow up, you know? Oh, you had a hard life? Yeah, don't we all?
Yeah.
You know, it's not exclusive to you, you know?
And I think that makes these movies good is like a lot of times I'm kind of like angry with the decisions Creed is making throughout all three movies a lot of times.
Yeah.
But he's still like, I like him. I'm rooting for him the whole movie.
Yeah.
But I just love that about these movies where like every time like in the second one, I'm like, you got a baby. You can't do that fight. You can't do that fight. Don't do that fight. And I'm like, why are you doing that fight? Like, oh.
Yeah, but that comes up in two. She's like, you didn't ask me. You didn't ask my opinion about, because he's like, you know, should I fight him? She's like, you didn't ask me about the last time you fought him. See what happened. And she wasn't, but he didn't have people backing him up. Right. So it's just like, yeah, you're the heavyweight champion of the world, but it's all these people that got you there. So
Yeah.
dude, it's so great. They're all great. Oh my God, I'm so excited. I
will
can't believe we're talking about this.
I will say, I think Tessa Thompson is great. I was kind of bummed her music. She started out as like a Portishead style band, like
Yeah.
Massive Attack. And by the third one, it was just hip hop. I was like,
But you know why?
because someone took over the singing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but because she lost her hearing, she can't perform. So they even talk about that.
Right. But I just
Someone
didn't know
else is
why-
living her dreams. Someone
That's
else is
true.
singing her songs. And that's what Dane says to her. He goes, Damien says, how's it feel when they're at the album release, the
Right.
party? How's it feel, you know, having someone else sing your songs and living your life, basically? And she's like, it's all right. And he's like, is it? And she's like, no. And he's like, yeah, I know the feeling. He's been watching Donnie live his life, or what he thought was going to be his life. So
Right.
there's some overlaps and some parallels. That's what's so cool about all of these is there's so many intertwined backstories that are so well done. And they're not blown out of proportion. They're all very simple and elegant. And they're so intertwined. And if you go, I bet if you read the script, you'd be amazed. I've just read portions of it, of just how simple the dialogue is. And there's some amazing one-liners that just like capture the moments perfectly. And I think that has to do with obviously just the way Sylvester Stallone and Rocky, he communicates as that character, but also just the nature of like, yeah, we're not going to talk about it. Like we're going to show it in the ring, right? We're not going to dwell on all this stuff like beat it out of us. But some of the one-liners are epic, and there are some really subtle ones that are great when like he gives them the new gloves, or no, he gets the shorts that say Creed on the front and Johnson on the back from his mom, and says, "Go make your own legacy." And Rocky just goes, "Very nice colors," and it's like really, really subtle, very nice colors, and those are the colors that his dad wore, Apollo,
Right.
the red, white, and blue. But he doesn't say, "Those are just like your dad's." You know, it's just,
Right.
it's super subtle. It's almost mumbled. You can hardly hear it,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
or like, "Oh yeah, I can you give me some workout suggestions, some to make my hands faster." So he writes it all down for him, and he just takes a picture of it. He's like, "Don't you want this?" He's like, "No, it's on my phone. What happens if you lose your phone? It's in the cloud," which is, and then he looks up and looks at the cloud, which I realize is kind of cheesy, you know, and it's a little cheeky, but it also kind of lets you know, like, he is not of this of this world. He's back. He's still in the 70s and the 80s. You
I
know?
mean, that's even something that, and obviously we haven't gotten into like any of the history yet.
We're
but
gonna be here all night.
I was gonna say we'll keep flowing with it, kind of jumping into places. But I mean, it's hard not to talk about the Sylvester Stallone of it all, because that's just he has a very good grasp on like kind of what made some of these Rocky movies work, or just what at least makes the character of Rocky work in the way that
It's
you're
him.
saying
I mean,
that.
it's his baby. He invented Rocky,
It's like,
right?
nice colors.
Very
But, like,
nice colors.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's just so subtle and good.
Yeah, like I think it's something that he even acknowledged too when they were like, "Hey, we want to write this movie," which I think was still originally pitched as Rocky 7, and he was like, "No, I think there's too much of a generational gap. What worked for the Rocky movies back then, it needs to be a new story." And I think that was even stronger, getting a really strong auteur like Ryan Coogler to helm this. I mean, we've seen some of his other stuff. Fruitvale Station was well
Yeah.
accoladed, and so was Black Panther 2. Again, movies where it's like he's leaning on a lot of mythology and folklore, as
Yeah.
I've talked about before, to inform. Yeah, I mean, things that were driven from adapted material like Marvel Comics, but still, like they felt unique. Where it's like, this feels like it's a sci-fi story about Africa and not a sci-fi story that was adapted about like, well, look at there's infinity stones out there somewhere. It's
Right,
like,
yeah,
fuck?
yeah.
Like it's just like, let's go. Like, oh my God, I got a story to tell
I mean,
about this guy.
People could argue that Rocky Balboa is a superhero,
Yeah,
right?
in a way.
I mean, yeah, but he comes from like they modernized, you know, the Rocky story,
yes.
and you know we don't know a lot about Rocky's backstory. We don't know that, you know, about his parents. They never go into that, right?
Right.
He's just this like working class bum who could have been a great contender, but chose to beat people up instead, you know, for money.
Right.
And then, you know, he finds his trainer Mickey. What does he say? You're gonna I wrote.
Don't look at me.
You're gonna eat lightning and
He's like,
crap
you're gonna,
thunder?
yeah, you're gonna eat lightning and crap thunder, which just talks about just how intense this training is. Like, it's just insane. It's just gonna completely reconfigure you as a human being.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the training in all of those movies, those montages, absolutely extraordinary. I mean, you're sitting on the couch like eating a sandwich, watching this, going, "I've never felt worse about my body." But it also makes you want to get up and do something.
Yeah,
It's
right.
so inspiring.
Well, every training montage in these movies, and I think the Creed movies have had just some phenomenal ones. I mean, I just watched Creed 3 last night, and just
when he
like
pulls when he pulls up airplane.
yeah, and you're like,
Yeah.
my God, like how the amount of strength that you need to pull a plane, like just even like as a
Even
person.
a Piper? Was that a Piper or a Cessna? It's like
Yeah.
I could pull a Piper, but the Cessnas, no,
Yeah.
no way.
Oh my gosh. But it's just, I mean, and you could just see though how dedicated Michael B. Jordan is to this role and making
Oh,
it
yeah.
feel real and making it feel like it's like, yeah, we've watched this guy perform for years. Speaking of Sylvester Stallone, right? Of like how Rocky overcome every opponent and have to learn new things from all these different trainers. And I think that's something that it feels so genuine to this franchise that like, you know, you have Rocky who had all these people train him, right? You had Burgess Meredith as Mickey, and
Yeah.
you had, you know, Apollo Creed himself, and then you had like Paulie, you know, and it's like all these people who have like given him, and Adrian was always his support system through all of it. And ultimately, what he gets, Adonis, is just Rocky. Like it's just he's just kind of telling him like little things like, hey, is this a wood for you? Just
Like, but he's also well aware of his limitations.
yeah.
Like I can't, I'm not fast enough. I can't teach you the speed. Like I can't spar with you.
Right.
He's like, I thought you were training with, like the best is like, cause Donnie he's an egomaniac at times. And he just like, he's so eager, but he's not willing to be patient with it. And he's like, you got to build, you got to quit talking. It's the fact that you're not learning anything if you're talking all the time.
Right.
It's like, shut up and listen. And, you know, when his daughter is born in 2 and his daughter doesn't have any hearing.
Right.
And he's just like, what am I going to do, Rock? And he's like, you can't feel sorry for her. She's not in there feeling sorry for herself. She has, that's her reality. That's her base reality. He's like, anything you're bringing to it, that's your stuff. Like, no, you got to love her. You got to support her. And that's it. That's her. So it's just these little tests throughout all 3 of the movies that it's just like, they're so relatable.
Yeah. Well, and I think something we've touched on too, and you keep saying, you know, he's an egomaniac, you know, it's like he gets hurt. He kind of like, he makes choices that are frustrating. Donnie is a flawed character.
Right.
Like, and I think that's what makes him compelling is that he's a flawed person, but somebody you still want to cheer for. And that's the magic that they've pulled together in this movie.
Yeah, because yes, flawed, but I mean, Rocky says it. It doesn't matter how hard you're hit. It's how many hard hits can you take and keep moving forward.
Right.
And he is just body blow after body blow, both figuratively and literally. And it's like, yeah, he's a flawed character. And some of those flaws are his own fault, but many of them, as we discover, as we go through all of the films, are not of his making. You know, and so that's what's so relatable to so many people. Yeah, it's just awesome. But I think the authenticity that is kept throughout all of the movies is fantastic. Like he does not waver from that character. He kind of goes back to his original self, you know, kind of a mumbling guy, like very simple, but really he's a smart guy. He's seen it all. Like when he gets diagnosed, spoiler alert, when he gets diagnosed with the cancer, everybody, we just assume, yeah, everybody wins. But he's just like, you know, I've seen it before. And my wife had it and she didn't win. And I don't want any part to do with that. It's like, well, hold on.
Yeah.
You know, then his daughter's born deaf. You said you can't feel sorry for her. Like, don't feel sorry for yourself. Fight through it, you know? So it's, you know, and they sum it up and kind of like, yeah, I've been working with him. He's been working with me through some stuff too. So it's great. I like that they keep it kind of under wraps, and that's something that just only the camp knows, you know?
Right.
It's awesome. Ugh, so good.
It is. I think it's a great story, and I think it's so cool seeing somebody else's experience. And again, I mean, we have to call it out too, the fact that now instead of having, you know, a white Italian man be the conduit for people who are trying to, you know, make their dreams come true, you have a young black man who also did not really have a father figure in his life, like come together and lean on the strongest people he knows, the women in his life, as you said.
Yeah.
Like his mother especially is like his biggest champion as much as like Bianca is, you know? And
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah, the mom's also like the biggest dose of reality every time. Like when she talks about how she has to take care of his father, and you know how she's been through this.
Yeah, and she's like, you don't have to be your father. She's like, you're his son. And then even when Bianca, when he's like, I'm worried about taking the name. She's like, why? He's like, if I don't live up to it, like I don't deserve the name. She's like, you're his son.
Right.
Take the name. Like it's yours. It's not even a question. And she's just like, you gotta follow your heart, follow your passion. You're not gonna be any good if you don't do what you love.
right.
So it's amazing how they took that story, because like Rocky's just this working class, you know, white guy from the streets of Philadelphia, and then they take it and make it for a millennial generation, right? And he wasn't. I mean, Donnie was not a working class guy. He was taken in. He got a great education.
Yep.
He did not have the upbringing. He had a rougher start or a different start. We don't know. We don't know what Rocky's upbringing is like. Maybe we'll find out in Creed 4.
Maybe.
Maybe they do a full flat. Oh, save it for later.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get into that.
We'll get into that.
Because I think we have to kind of get to.
We got to get through.
I mean, we got to get to
to
2 other movies, but also, I mean, listen. So no, I mean, we've covered a lot. You know, he goes to Philadelphia. He meets Rocky, right? Rocky starts training him, and he starts getting into more fights. And then finally, he gets a call because obviously word gets out that hey, this is Apollo Creed's son in the fighting circuit. This is a story. We've got the heavyweight champion being forced into retirement with pretty Ricky Conlan, played by a professional boxer.
Oh yeah, yeah.
First time, and is it the first time in any of like the Rocky or Creed movies that they actually have the main like rival be a real boxer? I was trying to remember in Rocky Balboa who that was.
No, in Rocky Balboa, it was a real boxer, and I'm forgetting his name all of a sudden.
I know. Well, I didn't do the research for Rocky Balboa.
No, I didn't. I just happened to see some information about it. But you know, Apollo Creed, he was a professional football player.
Right. Carl Weathers.
So Carl Weathers is a professional. So I saw an interview with Sylvester Stallone that when he came into Reed, it was like late at night, and he was just like, he was flying back to Oakland, and so he didn't have a lot of time, and so he comes in for the reading, and he's like kind of pissed off, and he's like, all right, let's get to this. And Sly goes, okay, angry, check, all right, great. And then he does the reading, and then he's like, yeah, okay, great. And then they're like, well, let's see how you look. And he took his shirt off, and Sylvester Stallone was just like, holy shit. Like, wow, I look like a piece of garbage compared to this guy. And he's like, yeah, that's the guy. I mean, he's just absolutely chiseled. Like,
For
God,
sure.
he's a professional
is.
football player. Just
mean,
absolutely
He's
incredible.
stacked up to Arnold in Predator,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
and
exactly.
There's some other podcasts that were doing episodes on like Predator.
Yeah.
McTiernan, yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about that whole fact of like there was like a competition between like Carl Weathers and Arnold Schwarzenegger just to be his.
Just the guns, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's somebody you want as a boxing film. We were
But
talking
they
about.
couldn't find anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, they were searching high and low, and it was like getting to the end where it's like, we got to find somebody. And then he came in, but he also said his charisma, which so much of what makes Apollo so great, was just palpable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Michael B. Jordan has that. And I think that Adonis has that. He has his dad's like charisma and his ring presence, for lack of
Right,
a better term. So yeah, so he's fighting pretty Ricky Conlan.
Mm-hmm. Played by, so former professional boxer Tony Bellew, not Bellew, like I saw that twinkle in your eye.
No, I
right?
got
The
it.
Jungle Book.
I love Baloo.
You know, Baloo is just Hindi for bear. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, that's a different. I'll disappoint you later with more knowledge
It might
about
be
that.
Bellew or Bellew. I'm not
Yeah, but
sure.
he ended up winning like a world title.
Yeah.
Like, I think after the movie or something. I mean, like after the filming. I could be wrong on the timeline, but
I think you're right. Yeah,
he's legit.
The WBC cruiserweight title from 2016, 2017. Creed 1 came out in 2016. So
Yeah.
you're correct.
See?
He did win as the movie was coming out, which is kind of good promotion.
amazing, right?
And he's playing like, I wonder like if he's kind of a guy, like a rough around the edges guy, because the character he's playing is like about to go to jail on a gun charge. Is that the character we're talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah.
Yes. Just
And he doesn't, he's just like, he's a fake Creed. He doesn't think it's worth it. And then, of course, much like Rocky 1, very similar. It's like, yeah, he went the distance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's totally robbed. I mean, he's, you can't win by, it's technical knockout. You can't win by a falling 8 count or whatever the rule is. Anyway,
Right.
he does not win. Adonis does not win. And it's just like, it's a match though. Like, Conlan wins the match, but Creed won the night. I think that's what the
Right.
announcer says. And the whole crowd is just going nuts. I mean, you get goosebumps. And the best part about that is like, you just think he's down. And the use of music during that scene is unbelievable because then the
Yeah.
Rocky theme, dun, 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 dun. And dude, every time I see that, I'm just like, let's go. And I go crazy. And then they cut when he just lands this like shovel hook, and they cut to his mom, and she goes, "That's what I'm talking about." And it's just like, yeah, because that perfectly encapsulates how everyone is feeling during that scene. Like you are just holding your breath and you're feeling every hit, and it's so well choreographed.
Yeah.
It's so well done. And the music expert absolutely whoever was in charge of that. They peppered it in such a great way.
They
throughout
held it
all of
off
them.
and did very little bits of it and then saved it for that and just dumped it all. And it was beautiful.
Oh, so good. And they recreated so many of the training scenes where he's like, he goes on his run, he goes to the steps. Well, Donnie doesn't do that, but he has him run all the way from like West Philly to like South Philly or North Philly, like 25 miles or something. And then he's like running through the neighborhood and all the little scooters and mopeds and stuff are following him, or motorbikes, I should say.
Guess what? I know who did the music for Creed?
Yeah.
Little known guy by the name of Ludwig Göransson.
Ooh.
Oh, man.
Big, I think now
So
officially
good.
an Oscar winner.
Yeah.
So, because I knew he like worked with Coogler like before doing
He's won
Black Panther.
multiple Oscars, has he not? Or
think-
certainly
No,
been
I think
nominated.
I think Oppenheimer was his
Nominated,
first.
Oppenheimer was
was his
first.
first win, but had he been nominated?
I'm sure he had.
He had to have been. He's like, he's
So
just
good.
up and coming. But yeah, he did looks like all the Creed movies from what I'm seeing.
Did he? Oh, that's cool.
So that's funny because you were talking about Bianca's
Or no.
music at first, and then
Just the
it does
first one.
take a different turn, like in the third. It's not bad.
Which is
it's
fine,
just
yeah.
different, right?
I
Although
just-
in the
I
second
love
one,
those,
she comes
like-
out singing one of her originals. Like, I don't know, that was a little over the top for
I
me.
just
but
love those like 90s electronic with like a female singer, like Massive Attack or Portishead. So when she was singing like that style, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is some Fred shit. And then later, it was still good music, but I was like, this is less Fred shit.
right, exactly. Yeah, it's a little different.
It's an exciting finish of the movie, and obviously an homage to Rocky 1. Because what I was trying to look up here too, and get down, is that they tried doing kind of this same ending in Rocky Balboa, right? And then even kind of down to having a professional boxer. So it was Antonio Tarver in that, and it was the same thing. They try to replicate Rocky 1, where it's like, oh, that Rocky's opponent is like Mason Dixon, and Rocky 6, wins the match, but Rocky, proved that he could still do it. But it's like, I think in that you have a slower, older Sylvester Stallone, and it's less exciting. And I think that's why I was kind of like, I don't know that I love that movie. Here, though, you have that working, right? Where it's like, it's a younger actor. It's somebody who can kind of look like they can go toe to toe with a real boxer.
Yeah.
And I think you buy it. And like, I think you get that insights too of somebody who's like, I'm in the ring for real,
Yeah.
every, day of my life training. I'm going to give you guys pointers. And it's like, you can just see it come across on camera that they know what they're doing. Every hit looks real and it feels it, right? Like,
Oh yeah. Well, and the whole Creed one, I mean, it's always just the message that's just constant is just like, you don't have to prove anything to anyone but yourself.
right.
Like Bianca says that to him. Rocky says that to him. His mom says that to him. It's not until he finally says it out loud to himself. He's like, don't call the match. I got to prove it. Prove what? That it wasn't a mistake. And you're just like, oh, like, it takes your breath away. And it takes Rocky's breath away. He's just like, you're a Creed and I love you, and it's like this little moment. But like he finally said it out loud. You could just feel that had been in his chest, for 20 some odd years, or however he's been holding it in. And it's just like, oh my God. And then that fuels him. Like he no longer has that weight on his back. Cause then he comes out and you can see he's like a little lighter on his feet. He's a little more Apollo,
Yeah.
and he's like a little tighter. And it's, I just love the whole adage, like one step at a time, one punch at a time, one round at a time. And it's like, it's so applicable to the viewer. Like you can take that and apply it to your own life.
Yeah.
All of these, like there are some profound little lessons in there and some big ones too. And it's so good. Like if you're having a crappy day, man, turn on Creed and you're like, all right,
You
you got
can do
this.
anything.
Well, kind of. I mean, well, it just makes you realize it's just like, yeah, you got to fight, right? It's whatever. You're in a different kind of ring, but it's like you just got to fight. Just keep going. Just keep moving forward. Just keep grinding. And it's awesome. And you just have your own little soundtrack in your head. Crank up some Rocky. I know. What would your soundtrack sound like? Who knows?
I
whole other
love.
podcast.
Oop, there it is.
That's yours? That's it?
Yeah, but I think that's just the Space Jam one. I don't know if I
Yeah.
can take that one.
man.
That's all right.
That was just what came to my head.
That's
all right.
that's still an acceptable. Totally.
I think if I was a boxer, though, I would want to be some fancy pants, and they could even just call me fancy pants because everyone's fancy pants.
So
in
are
boxing.
we talking about your training soundtrack or your walk-in song?
I was thinking walkout song.
Oh,
was that?
okay.
Oh, your walkout song?
I would want like something like I would be weird and be like, I want it to be like an opera aria piece that like is loud and like coming out, or like I'd want to feel like
Barbara
a fancy
Seville.
boy. Yeah. Then I have a nice mustache. Like that'd be
You'd
my
have a
move.
nice mustache?
Yeah, I can't grow one, but if I was boxing, I probably could.
Yeah.
Honestly, you could pull it off. I feel like you kind of got like you could sell an old timey look like you're from like the 30s or 40s.
I just like that your idea is like, well, if I'm gonna box, you're not thinking like, yeah, I'm gonna be working, I'm gonna be cut. It's like I'm growing a mustache.
What is my character gonna be?
Yeah.
What's my favorite? Should I have a mustache? That's your only concern. Mustache, no mustache.
They can't hit a guy hard if you got a really cool mustache.
True that. Well, at least they avoid the mustache.
I gotta one up
respect.
myself after my last one because we did this in our previous episode on the Brewers, talk about like walk-in songs or walkout songs. And I picked Sail for that one. I'm like, you know what? I can do better. So one of the songs we used to get jacked up when I played football was Till I Collapse, which is an Eminem song. And that song really gets you jacked up. And I'm like, especially for a boxing match, like that is the one I would come out to 100% because I feel like that would just juice me up and juice the crowd up.
What would you come out to?
Yeah.
I
What would
knew you were gonna ask me that. I don't know. I'm gonna have to come back to that. There's so many options. I might do something kind of, I don't know.
Would you do Living in America like the Apollos in Rocky
Go.
IV?
No, maybe I don't know. I'm a dual citizen, so I don't know. Maybe I could do some Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald Canadian.
Oh,
I like that.
Wow.
Gordon Lightfoot, the
Yeah.
Canadian troubadour.
Or would you go for Rush?
Sundown. Oh, Rush.
Ooh, yeah.
Tom Sawyer. That
Tom Sawyer
would
would
be
be good.
sweet. That would be pretty
It'd be
good.
nice to have something disarming though, like
But a little
come out.
sundown, like that, dum 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 dum, like the sundown, like
Yep.
intro.
Sundown,
You better take care. I mean,
Oh,
it's all about dying.
This guy in
from
Lightfoot
drugs.
can't go a year without bringing up Lightfoot in this sunken ship.
Hey man, every
It's only on the anniversary.
on the Edmund Fitzgerald anniversary.
I
Yes.
know.
He pops it in the group chat every year.
I do. I got to remind people, like, hey guys, don't forget if you don't
The
know about
souls
this
of
event.
Detroit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a song all about it. It's poetic.
Have you ever been to the monument in Detroit?
No.
Oh, it's
I've never
beautiful.
been to
That's a
Detroit.
whole- Oh, good Lord. All right, road trip. Anyway, let's get back to Creed. Because
Yes.
if we go down the Gordon Lightfoot,
Yeah,
rabbit hole-
them are in a
That's a
3-hour episode.
different
all right,
episode
so
with just you two.
we gotta end Creed 1
Yep.
Let's end it.
with the most poignant scene, in my opinion.
Go for it.
When they're training and Rocky, he's got him in the gym. Rocky's sitting there reading the paper, legs crossed, and he's doing the rope, right? This jump rope, and then the bell rings. And then he's like, I didn't say stop. That bell is hell, Donnie. And then he just starts jumping again. And then they cut, and he's got him in front of the mirror. And he's like, I'm going to leave you here for a while. I have the quote. He says, see this guy here staring back at you? That's the toughest opponent you're ever going to have to face. And so he just mirror boxes with himself. And it's awesome because it's so true, right? And everybody knows that. And you're just like, yeah. And so you just sit there in the mirror, beating yourself up. That's in the ring. He proved it.
Yes.
He had to get over himself to get through the wall of a man he was trying to beat across the other way. So that is an awesome scene. And they do call back to that in the other movies. Not the same, but just like that moment, that style of practicing. It's awesome. But that's a great moment.
It's like, it's so poignant to, I think, the point that he's trying to tell him like the whole time, right? It's like only you can keep yourself down. And I think it's always Donnie trying to overcome, like when we were talking about like his faults, his choices. He's trying to like, take the hits and then keep going. And
Because Rocky says the same thing. Rocky, he's telling Adrian the night before the fight, they're laying in his, crappy bed with his turtle tank and everything.
Yeah.
And he's just like, I got to go. No one's ever gone the distance with Apollo. He's like, if I can do that, like I prove that, like I'm not nothing, I'm just not this street fighting guy. Like he is something, but he has to do that. That's the only way he can prove to anyone but himself that he's worthy
Right.
of anything. Right. Because, oh man.
Right. I mean, that's what's so much of the wider franchise. Like I said, it's impossible to talk about Creed without talking about Rocky, but that is what it's so much about is overcoming your fears, your whatever's holding you back, and it's like and trying to prove to yourself that you're worth a damn. Like it's from Rocky 1 all the way to now, and it's such a great mirror image that I think it's almost surprising Stallone didn't write any of this movie. And I just want to talk a little bit about that to bridge the gap to 2,
Right.
Yeah.
where because this first was announced that was going to get made by MGM in July of 2013, and they had just signed Ryan Coogler, who had just came out with Fruitvale Station that year. Have you seen that, Fred?
I saw that in Oakland.
Did you?
Yes.
Wow.
Which is kind of crazy because I remember seeing the buses going around with the Fruitfuls, where it has like where they're going. And I was just like, oh, so this happened near here.
Yeah, I remember the buzz around that movie and just being like, I cannot wait to see what these guys do next. Like, this is like the next great pairing is Michael B. Jordan and Ryan Coogler doing project, and it's still going on. Like they're about to enter, I think, into their 4th or 5th movie coming up here. But basically, he had signed on to direct a spin-off, basically a 7th film in the Rocky series, but that it would be based around the son of Apollo Creed. And so it was co-written by Aaron Covington with Ryan Coogler. And he had said he had sent a draft to the studio of the movie. And then that was confirmed. They basically were able to lock in Stallone and Michael B. Jordan on that because they both read the script and loved it. And still, that was where we talked about Stallone basically saying, he had started working on a screenplay, but then ultimately decided he didn't want to do it because he just said it's just been too much time and that this was a 2 different generations story to tell. Which is funny because he kind of contradicts himself.
Yeah.
As he does. So the movie was released on November 25th, 2015. Received very positive critical reviews. It grossed $109 million in North America and $63 million in other territories. So $180 million on a budget of $35 million. This movie was a smash. Like, it was huge. And then shortly after the release of the movie, January 2016, they confirmed that a sequel is going to be in production, this time involving the son of Ivan Drago, right? Because we have the carry-on story here of who was the guy that killed his dad, right? It's Drago. And so it's like, what if Drago had a son? So we'll get into some of that story.
But it's established that Drago did have a son in the Rocky one, right? Because doesn't and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, because I think that when he loses, that it's when Drago loses, that he loses everything. And I think he's sent to Ukraine with his son, and his wife leaves him and everything. And I thought that's alluded to in Rocky. I could be wrong. I gotta go watch it, but it wasn't.
Maybe Rocky 5 that nobody remembers.
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, Rocky 5.
I don't think that was in Rocky 4. I think it just kind of left on the moment of the Russian people like cheering on Rocky and
turning.
Yeah.
But does his wife leave? I know she does in 2.
Yeah.
But does the wife leave in 4? when
It
that
has to be
happens?
set up based on. I just watched 2 today, and based on how they're like shooting her and setting things up, there was definitely
This was
stuff.
not the first time.
This was
clearly
established in the other movie
Okay,
for
anyway,
sure.
Go ahead.
Something, it must have been established early. I guess I don't remember any of that. But
Brigitte Nielsen? You
Yeah.
didn't remember Brigitte Nielsen? Okay.
I remember because she was on that weird reality TV show with Flava Flav, and that's like when I first started looking at her.
Wasn't she married, or was she married to Stallone at one point, or they
Yes,
were dating?
yes.
They were married, right?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, Creed 2. We're gonna go down the Brigitte Nielsen.
Yeah. She did get married to a lot of people. I think there was
She
some.
did get married to a lot of people.
I was even surprised to see Dolph Lundgren wasn't on there, but I think I remember when this movie was getting made, because I remember loving the first one so much. I was very in on the production of it. And I remember they were like, oh, are they going to get her back? Is she going to come back and kind of mess with Rocky a little bit or something like that?
Yeah, but when she shows up, it takes your breath away.
Yeah.
Because you're like, what? That's what's so great about it. It's very, very subtle. It's not. I don't even think she has one line. I mean, if she does, it's in Russian.
She says like "Hello, son," and that's it.
And that's it. And then she whispers a couple things in Russian.
Yeah, because she did not want to be a part of it. And then they talked her into it.
You are not going to be in a scene with Stallone at all. That was probably the.
It's like, it's do this, make a ton of money in a huge blockbuster, or go back to doing reality TV. She's like,
I mean, and so I mean, that's kind of the drama that started going on outside. And we're starting to learn that a little more recently. Stallone is kind of a toxic personality. He's not an abusive person, but he's not a good dude to be around, it sounds like. And I think.
well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I have not done a lot of research on it because I kind of didn't want it to taint any of my perception about any of this. But imagine, I mean, this is his baby. Like, he created Rocky Balboa. He wrote the original screenplay for Rocky. He fought tooth and nail to get it made. He insisted that he be Rocky. He couldn't find anyone to allow him to be Rocky. And then he goes and wins the Oscar, and then takes it to this, a level nobody ever thought. So it's like, I understand being very protective of it.
Yes.
And but again, like we were talking before the podcast, I think there's a huge generational disconnect with what will hit, and like, no, you got to modernize it. And I think Creed 1 modernizes it perfectly. I think Creed 2 modernizes it perfectly. I think Creed 3 we'll get to that drama there. But yeah, I purposely stayed away from any of the external drama on the side, because it's like, oh, no, I don't want to know. It's gonna hurt it.
I'm sorry to
no.
hurt you.
I have researched it, but not to the detriment of my enjoyment.
But I think we have to kind of talk about that, because part of the fallout, and I mean, we'll get to in here in just a moment too, is that, in the awards circuit comes around, he gets a Best Supporting Actor nod, and he was winning a lot of them at like the Golden Globes and
for Creed 1.
Yeah. But then the Oscars say no. And I think a lot of people are like, because he doesn't have a lot of friends in Hollywood. He made a lot of enemies, and people don't really like him. I think that's kind of why Willis and Schwarzenegger even kind of started just distancing themselves from him. They're like, look, we had Planet Hollywood, but you do you, my dude. Like,
I think it stems from what you said about Rocky. That setup, that fighting tooth and nail and being like kind of the sole creator, is something that he kept throughout his career, through all movies.
Yeah.
And I think that was like the big kind of butting heads he's had in Hollywood, is like him being like, oh, I'm going to write it, and like he'll try to take over projects, but he still got it. It's just like, you got to be a team player.
Yeah. I think that's his one. If he has one flaw, he's a classic creative of like, I have a vision. I want it done this way, but it's like, you got to play my way, and I'm not going to see it your way. So,
but for Creed 2, he's credited with writing the screenplay.
Yes, he is.
But the story is Sasha Penn and Coker, Chio Coker.
Yes, and
according to my printout here.
Yes, it's you're like, I've got the very official information.
Exactly.
Correct. And he did have a co-writer of Jewel Taylor with him too.
Yeah.
But clearly had thoughts in mind of what he wanted for this story, and it very much feels like the direct sequel to Rocky IV is what this does.
Right. Like I said, I haven't seen all the Rocky movies. I've seen a lot of stuff from TV. I've taken it in by osmosis. Creed 2 feels like a Rocky movie to me, and I meant that, and I mean that in a good way, of what I've seen.
Yeah.
Because basically what happens is, so they start developing Creed 2, January 2016. They get in there. Ryan Coogler gets deep into production on a little something called Black Panther, and is like, I don't have the time or the energy to commit to this, and they wanted to move forward. They want to get this going because
you got traction.
They got momentum, so they want to keep moving. So originally he was replaced by Sylvester Stallone as director, and Stallone was going to direct the second one until ultimately he was like, no, I just want to write this. I'll be in it, but somebody else come in here and direct it. So basically that kind of got switched all around. So it's kind of muddy. And I think there's a reason that like a lot of these sites contradict themselves. And you're like, well, wait, I thought so-and-so wrote this. Because there's still some disputes. And I think kind of Stallone is a factor in that, of like trying to take credit for some stuff that he did do. And I think he loves to make sure his name is on there when he's provided ideas to these stories. Again, not to shit on Sylvester Stallone. It's not kind of what this is about.
Well,
but
it also it has to do with the producers, because it's Irvin Winkler, right?
Yes.
That
Yes.
produced the original Rocky.
They've
So
been
there's
buddies
been
for a while.
bad blood between those guys for forever, but they were producing partners, and so they produced Creed 2. I mean, Irwin was in on that too. So, but now I think that it's gotten to the point where they're just like, yeah, no, you're out. So, but so he wrote the screenplay or co-wrote the screenplay for Creed 2. And I agree with you. It does feel much more like a Rocky movie than the sequel to Creed. Having said that, it is a great sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is it delves a little more into like, okay, like he has a kid now, right? Now they live in LA. It's just totally different. It's a different vibe. But much like in, is it Rocky IV where he which one is it where he loses everything? That's 5. But like
3?
3 where he gets like really, really big and he's like Mr. Flash and he's got all of so that's kind of what Adonis is going through, right?
Yep.
And he's got all this stardom and everything like that. And he's just not training as hard. I mean, it's the classic story. And it very much mirrors the Rocky's experience as well. And then it's, again, the wife's got to bring him back. Like, hey, man, it's not only about you. You've got a daughter. We're a family, all this stuff. And yeah, it's something. And then the Drago fight, the actor that plays Drago is unbelievable. He is the biggest human, much like his father was. But his father was like, Dolph Lundgren?
Dolph Lundgren.
Dolph Lundgren. I always pronounce his first name incorrectly. Is just massive, right? He's got the wingspan of an albatross. He looks like the handsomest ski instructor that you'll ever see. But he's just got this unbelievable reach. And then his son has the height, but he's just so muscular and he's just massive.
Yep.
And like his father, dwarfs Adonis. I mean, he just looks tiny next to him. And you're like, there's no possible way. There's no possible way. And even Rocky says that. He's like, he's got 80 pounds on you.
Yeah.
He's got all this stuff on you. Like, if you like, there's no reason you should win this. I mean, none of these guys should have won any of these fights.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. That's what makes it so great.
Yeah.
Everyone loves an underdog, right?
And I thought it was kind of a risky move to be like, so for the second one, we're just bringing like one of the bigger like villains of the previous franchise, and he's going to have a son, which sounds like such like reboot garbage. But when they do it, they give so much like story and like they give an arc to Drago's son that it works for me. It doesn't feel out of place because when I saw
it's not
the
forced and
posters,
contrived.
it's
really
when
good.
I saw the posters, I was like, oh, this kind of seems like they're going, oh, let's pull someone out of the bag of goodies from the past. But when I watched it, I was just like, no, they're taking the time. They're bringing stuff back from the old movies, from what I know, and sort of the mirror, yet like the opposite of these two boxers and their relationship to their mother and their father.
Yeah, but you're correct. And I think the reason it works is back to the script being like really light on dialogue, right?
Right.
They show so much more than they tell.
Yes.
And visually, like you don't have to have any dialogue in those scenes of him and his son living in Ukraine. In fact, I don't even think there is any. And if there is, it's in Russian and we can't understand it. And there are very few subtitles even for you to, but he, wakes him up by like kicking him, right? It's freezing cold. It's like almost watching like a black and white movie. There's like no color in the sky. It's so sparse and so cold. You can feel how cold it is. It's like, get up, training. And they start training from dusk, and you can just see they have nothing. They've been completely put on the edge of Ukraine. Like Russia wants nothing to do with them, and he never gives up. Right? And he's just like, nope, I'm getting it all back. They left me, my country left me, and I'm getting it back. And it's extraordinary. And his poor son.
Yes.
Oh my God. He only says about 4 words in the whole movie, and it's probably because no one taught him how to speak because neither parent gave a. I mean, his father ultimately, as we learn, of course, absolutely loves his son. He throws the towel. He throws in the towel. Like,
Right.
no, it's more important that I protect my son. I'm here for my son. And oh my God. But yeah, he never, his mom completely left him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he basically is like being raised in like the gulag, of
Right.
like the outskirts
Yeah.
of Ukraine. Oh, it's very dramatic, but there's very little dialogue. And there's very little dialogue with throughout the entire movie. And there's a lot of silence. And I think that has to do with the fact that his daughter can't hear, his wife has hearing issues. And so I think that's really poignant. I think that's very powerful. The silence in that movie is really powerful, and they just show a lot of the drama.
They do.
Again, just good use of sound in all these movies for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, every thud, yeah, even when they're in the boxing matches too, it just feels like bone shattering. I think
Yeah.
especially in the third one too, and we'll get to that shortly. But yeah, I mean,
One thing I did miss in
Yeah.
the second one
Mhm.
that I loved in the first one was the interplay of like when they're showing like their next opponent, right? Like when he's sparring and he's just like pretty Ricky Conlon, and it comes out and it has all of the stats kind
Right.
of like that, and the ESPN
yeah,
like inner splicing of like the different kind of promotional aspects of like Sports Center and stuff. I thought that was expertly done and really, really cool and so engaging. And that was kind of missing in the second one for me.
yeah,
Because I really thought that like that made it seem more realistic as well.
Mhm.
Because that's how we watch sports, right? And like you're going for that 30 and 30, like
Yeah.
you want to see that. So
waiting for Stephen A. Smith, who I know pops up in the third one.
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
to
yeah,
tell
yeah,
you, you're like,
yeah.
oh, these guys, I don't believe them. Like, he's like,
I was just gonna say I love that in any movie where like it pauses and it has like their name and stats, like Stiglitz and Inglorious Bastards or something.
but it's so expertly done.
Oh, yeah.
in all of them.
and I mean, in this one too, then we also again have a real boxer across the ring from Michael B. Jordan with Florian Munteanu.
Yeah.
Or Montianu. And you can tell why. Like we were talking about Jack Reacher earlier. This guy is a Jack Reacher looking dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Drago's son is who you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so he's an actual boxer, which I was gonna say he has a lot of great face acting because he doesn't have a lot of, like you said, a lot of dialogue. So I'm not surprised based on his build that he's a boxer. I was just very
I'm impressed with his
acting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because he just plays the intensity. Like the things that I think everybody remembers of Drago is he's actually embodying those things a little bit. Not to shit on Dolph Lundgren. I think he's doing some pretty good work in this movie, especially.
Thought he was great.
But
Yeah.
like you kind of watch Rocky 4 and he's just very
If
cold.
he dies, he dies.
Right.
And you're like, okay.
He's very like stereotypical Russian. Whereas I
Yeah.
feel like, with Monteanu, you have, or, Drago Jr. basically. He's
DJ?
DJ, yeah.
DJ, yeah. He,
Old Man Drago's kid?
Deej.
the Deej.
Call him the Deej from China. Oh my
But
God.
he's just, you can tell he's gone through these years of just hearing about it, Victor Drago, right? And it's like,
Well, that's why Rocky's kid is living in Vancouver, right? Living in his dad's shadow. And he alludes to that. But this guy not only has to live in his dad's shadow, he is sleeping on the couch, in this crappy, freezing cold apartment. And his dad's just like, get up. Like your only life is hitting things. That's it.
And that's how they opened the second one, which was a great way to do it. Just like cold open, literally them in Ukraine, like
Yeah.
getting him up, like you said, kicking him up. That's how the
Picking
movie
him up.
starts.
And it's just, I mean, your bones are cold just watching that. I mean, that's a very, very harsh Spartan existence
Yes.
that he's going through, and he has no choice. There's literally no choice in the matter.
yeah.
That's all he knows. And Rocky even says that he was born and he is bred to fight. That is the only thing this guy knows. There's no. There we find out there is a backstory. He does have a soul in a gooey center, right?
Well, of course. I
he
mean,
just
it's
wants
like
his mom.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's just a
something
big
has
baby.
to give when you are just being like force fed that thing every day. You're not a robot. You're a person, right?
Right.
And and I think we see that a lot with Donnie in this movie. He's going through it. We talked about the whole him having the daughter and realize that she's like deaf, and it's like, and it's such a difficult moment for him trying to go through it. And it's kind of heartbreaking because it's like this was like their biggest fear, and it's like kind of came true. But then I think it's beautiful how they learn to like live with this and they embrace it. And I think the third one especially does such a great payoff of like they not only accepted her, but they are like, this is their life, and they are so happy to have her, and they are going to do everything for her.
But you could see that moment when she's born, and he's like, you could see it. It's not said, but you could see like she can't hear, and Tessa Thompson or Bianca starts crying and kind of moves the tears away, and he's just. You can just see him in the reflection of the window, and he's just sitting there, and you can see him thinking like, how is this going to affect me?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because it's like, she's not perfect. She's broken, quote unquote. She can't hear. Like, what effect is this going to have on me? And it's like, whoa, dude. And so he had to get there, and Bianca's just like, no, I got to go down to the studio, take care of her. And that scene where he cannot get her to stop crying.
Mm-hmm.
Is awesome because like if you're a parent, you've all been there. It's just like, oh my God. And he's calling his mom. Mom's not helping him. Bianca's gone, and he finally brings her to the gym. The one thing he knows.
Yeah.
Like his sanctuary. And he's like, okay. And then it just kind of all falls into place.
Right.
Like,
And this was after he lost that first match, right, against Victor, like that he found out that the pregnancy happened. Because that's what it looks like in the notes. But I'm like, I thought that was all before.
No, he knows she's pregnant when he goes into the first fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like his life's kind of a whirlwind at
Yeah,
that
because he
point.
got the crap beat out of him, near death almost. He's in the hospital and she's pregnant, and the doctor's like, whoa, like you need to sit down and take care of yourself.
Right.
So again, it's all about Donnie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Rock comes to see him in the hospital.
Yeah, so to catch us up to this moment, okay, so yeah,
Sorry,
basically,
folks.
no, but yeah, so I think just so nobody gets lost in what we're talking about, right? So
Oh, they're so lost.
yeah, I know, they're like, what the hell's happening here? No, I mean, if you've seen these movies, you've seen it, but like, it's like Donnie, the first start of the movie is he wins the heavyweight championship from, what's his name, Danny Stuntman Wheeler.
Yeah.
So he's now the champion, right? He's got the LA life. We're seeing basically Rocky 3 version of Donnie now. He's got his cushy life, but now he's got this pregnancy coming up, and it's just he's got his mom around, who obviously he loves, but it's always a lot. I think he's overwhelmed, and he gets his ass kicked because he gets rushed into this fight where they're like, "Here's Drago's son. Here's your chance to avenge your dad." Right?
Yeah, because he's overwhelmed. Like he's got a pregnant wife. He hasn't trained properly. He's overwhelmed by all this new stuff that's happening.
Right.
So he goes, where is it? Like the Barclays Center, huge venue, totally ill prepared. And Duke, he's even telling him, like, you got to get your head in this.
Yeah,
Like, you're not ready. You're not ready, champ.
Being
He's like,
trained by Tony Evers now.
oh my God.
But yeah, and so the whole rest of the movie is just Donnie trying to pick up the pieces of his life, right, and trying to pull this together to get himself back. And it is very much, it's like the equation of like putting Rocky 3 with like a Rocky 4 wallpaper over it.
So he fights Victor and he loses.
Mm-hmm.
But then Victor's disqualified because he hits him when he's down. Cheap shot.
Right.
So they disqualify him. So he retains the belt.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then they have the rematch, but it's got to be in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, and they're interviewing Victor and they're just like, that defeat. And he's like, what defeat?
Right.
Like, I beat him. Like, you guys disqualified me. Like, technicality. I mean, he hit him after the bell, right?
Right.
When he's down. But, which just shows what a machine that guy was. Like, there's no off switch.
Right.
Like, I didn't hear that bell. I'm going to keep going. So they disqualify him. So it's, controversial that he's even has retained the belt.
Right.
And he's almost lost his life. I mean, he got the absolute stink beaten out of him.
Mhm.
He had like 5 broken ribs, fractured skull, broken nose. I mean, he looks like he got hit by.
No, yeah.
He looks
Frank.
awful.
Aside from who holds the title, like the outcome of that match is very much kind of the same idea of the last one. Like he won the match by technicality. Victor won the night because then he becomes super popular in Russia and he's like winning all these fights. He's getting top billing out there.
His mom comes back
Yeah.
on the scene to support. So, yeah, he's living high on the hog. They're no longer in Ukraine. They're in Moscow. unbelievable training facilities. And then you cut back to the US and Donnie's completely physically and mentally totally shattered.
Yeah.
And Bianca can't do anything. She goes to the mom and is like, what can I do? He's like totally distant. You know, you get the baby, all this stuff. And she's just like, he is a grown ass man and he has to heal himself from the inside out. And then you cut to like a healing montage, which I think is really interesting
Yeah.
because you don't really see that in a lot of movies. I mean, the best is like when he's just floating in the bottom of the pool
Yeah.
and it's just
Very The
silent.
Graduate. Yeah.
Yeah, very The Graduate. Right,
Yeah.
right. But, you know, because the pool scene, he was training in a pool in the first one. You know, he's underwater and he's sparring. And then this one, he can't even do that.
No.
He's just like, I don't have anything left in me. And so that's when Marianne, his mom, sends for Rock to take the train out California because I don't like to fly. So he takes the train, very, very beautiful.
Very John Madden of him.
Yeah, and he's like, very nice scenery. You know, just again, like these little Rocky quips, you know. And like when he walks in, he meets him. He doesn't know he's coming. His mom invites him over. He's like, honey, you know, come on over. I want to talk to you. And he's standing in Apollo's trophy room. He's just surrounded by it. And then Rocky comes in. He's like, very impressive things. You know, like doesn't give it. It's just like, it's just so simple. He's a simple guy, right? He only knows a couple of things, but he's just like, what's up? And then they reconnect.
Yeah.
And then they get the call that Bianca's in labor.
Right.
That's why.
Right. Is it
Now
the
we're putting the
birth?
pieces together here. Yep. Then he
I
goes
had to
to
get us
this-
back on track, guys.
Yeah.
That's all right. But yeah, so we get the classic training montage, right? Like the healing, and then him getting together with Duke and Rocky and getting him up to snuff again, right? And to get his broken ribs, like get back in shape. You know, he's literally just patching his body together in order to get ready for this fight.
Yeah, but he says we got to go. We got to do something differently. The
Yeah.
training's different this time. So they go out to the desert,
Right.
and I mean, this is like what's the line? This is where broken fighters go to get fixed or something.
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
something like
and
that.
it's just like it's like if you went to a robot graveyard. I mean,
Yeah.
it was just like, and these guys are rough looking, and it's like it's just the sun, and that I think one of the first things they do is they bring him out to the middle of the desert and they give him a sledgehammer.
Yeah.
Work on that for a while, and he just starts.
I assume
digging
that
a
would
hole.
give him reach. Because they were saying he doesn't have the reach on him. So
Yeah,
I'm thinking
so-
if you're doing this, you're getting your arms stretched out.
We heard the stretch right there.
You heard that little crack and pop?
You better start working on that mustache.
You gotta work on that.
Yeah, that flavor saver. Yeah, so I think that does stretch out the tendons and builds those muscles and those reach muscles. Because
Yeah.
he's got like half a foot reach on
Right.
Adonis.
When you see the arm swing on the Russian guy, or like it's
He's like an
huge.
albatross.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
It's unbelievable.
I was like trying to think of the bird. I was like, he's like a bird.
He's like a bird, man.
But I love where they have the circle on the ground, and you have to. Each fighter has to have a
It's
foot.
a tire.
Yeah, a tire,
It's
and
a
you
tire.
each have to have like a tie, like your foot in there, and you're boxing like face to face.
Yeah, it's like Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
Yeah.
Right.
Literally.
Dictionary, but yeah. You have
Yeah,
to,
and you have to keep your left or right foot, depending. And yeah, and you don't get out of the circle. In fact, to get away from the punch, you lean in. You go down and lean into it. So no, it's really intense. And that's when they bring back the one punch at a time, one step at a time, one round at a time. And that's the mantra. And then it just is I mean, you can feel the heat in that place. And yeah, he's hanging from like a board, and Rocky's got like a medicine ball, and he's just hitting him in the stomach with it. And you're just like, oh my God.
Well, isn't it not just sort of like a juxtaposition too against like not only like Victor's training, you know, being like these ice cold elements of like, you know, Ukraine or in like Western Russia.
Yeah.
But also like Rocky too. Remember in Rocky 4 when he's also like training in like the snow and he has to like run up the snowy mountain. It's like,
Yeah.
so now you literally almost have like a battle of like fire and ice in a way, right? Because he's
Yeah.
training in this heat and he's kind of like, he has this element of just like, yeah, he's kind of sweating it out and he's kind of learning.
But
how
he's
to-
going back to the basics, like the grit.
Yep.
But now Victor, he's high on the hog. So now they flash to Russia, and he's in the top-notch gyms and stuff in
Yeah.
Russia that they've essentially built for him
Right.
now, right?
Yeah.
Because now he's the golden child. And so the tables have turned. He's not in the Delphi gym where they make champions. He's out in the desert where champions go to die and become reborn, which again is part of that Greek mythology. Adonis, like, he spends part of his time in hell and part of his time on earth,
Right.
or up in the celestial part of being a demigod. So it's constant. There are callbacks to it, subtle and overt, in all of these movies, and it's really something. That whole training scene is extraordinary, where he's pulling something with his. He's lifting up a weight with his head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, good Lord.
He's puking.
But then it's amazing because you think, yeah, okay, he's really cut. But then when you look at him, like his I don't know all the names of all the muscles, but like his lats, like how strong does your neck have to be to take an uppercut? Because you see that uppercut when he fights Conlon. One of the first big hits, his neck goes all the way back. And
Yeah.
you're just like, holy God. And it's like, that really happens, you know? And it's like, what muscles, like, how do you even train those muscles? Oh, apparently you take a 50-pound weight strapped to a leather strap,
Yep.
then belt that around your forehead and do a couple hundred reps.
Yeah.
That's how we do it, folks. I don't know. It's intense. It's intense.
Ridiculous.
Indeed.
But it gets us then to the big rematch
Yes.
in Moscow. And you're right. The tables have turned a little bit too. And you get like this frustration out of Victor too in some of this time leading up, that it's like Ivan's kind of like kind of come back to like accept these people who cast them out. And he's like, but what, this isn't the life we've gotten. There's even kind of a piece in him where you start to see that gushy center, right? Of start to stick out. Like, this isn't right. Like we were nobodies. We were thrown out, and now we're being, welcomed back by these people who are like, oh, we were wrong. I'm so sorry. And it's like, fuck
Yeah.
these people. Like,
Yeah.
like you feel for him a little bit. And I think that's the mark of a good villain, is if you can empathize a little bit with their situation.
For sure.
Yeah. Because I mean, he Victor Jr. or DJ, Drago Jr., we could call him Victor, right? His first name's
Yeah.
Victor. Like he has no control. He was born into that, right? It has almost nothing to do with him. He's just a pawn. And so, yeah, the fight starts, and it's just, I mean, an absolute,
Just wailing on him. Yeah.
absolutely wailing on him. And then, Adonis, they come back, and then it does turn. And you're like, oh my God, he's going to do it. Now, Victor finally realizes that it's like, oh wait, my son and the safety of my son. Cause he's gonna, Adonis is going to keep punching him until he is dead,
Right.
Right.
period. Like, you killed my brother, prepare to die.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's going to happen. And Victor knows that, or, Victor Sr. knows that. And so he throws in the towel, and he's like, he realizes like revenge isn't worth it,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just gonna love my son. And then when he hugs him and is like, it's okay. It's okay that you lost. Like, I was sobbing.
Yeah.
For sure.
Absolutely. So you're sobbing now. That's a chubby tear coming down. Well, but then,
A little bit of heat too. in the sweat.
right, exactly. Yeah. We're a little
I
overheated.
don't know why I
here.
wore long sleeves for this.
So I don't know if any of you guys noticed, but so Adonis wins, right? And Duke goes in the ring, Bianca goes in the ring, everyone's celebrating, and Rocky excuses himself. He goes out of the ring and he sits down and he just watches
Takes in
the
the moment.
celebration.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excusing himself for it. He's like, I can't take all the credit for that. Maybe the first one, but not all the credit. But
Right. Yeah. But it is. It's like it's another reflection too. Like I said, it's Rocky 3 with the skin pushing, because that's how Rocky beats Clubber Lang. He kind of like lets him wear himself down until eventually he can't really defend himself, and Rocky can just wail on him until he knocks Mr. T out. And I think this guy was a little bit better actor than Mr. T, which is great. So, but I don't know. Yeah, I think at the time, and just to kind of do the little postmortem on it a little bit. But so this movie ended up getting directed by Stephen Caple Jr., right? So it was kind of the third choice director. And I think
And I don't know what else he has directed.
I
I'm
don't
not
know that he's
familiar with
done
it.
a lot. I haven't researched him extensively, but
Yeah, I thought he might have been like more on like a producing or like some sort of other job, and he kind of was pulled in like a production design person or something, or a DP.
yeah, but I still think he got the other movie that he's known for is called The Land, and then Transformers: Rise of the Beasts.
He rose the beast.
He rose the beasts,
Okay.
but you know, I still think what he did though was he kept the engine moving, and I think there's critics that they weren't like applauding this the same way that they were Creed 1, but I think everybody still was like, this is still a very very good sequel. But I think it was just based on the fact that people were like in love with Creed 1. They're like, this is how you do
Yeah.
this type of movie, like
100%.
a requel, right? And
Yeah, and it hits harder the first time.
Like
in
I
those
still scream on the
situations.
plane when I watch it.
yeah. And it's, I mean, it's exciting, and it's got, I think, just
And
even
it
reliving
doesn't
it.
matter how many times you watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, folks, but it first of all, it's on TV all the time. I don't know
Right.
for any of you cable subscribers out there, but I'm a Spectrum fan, and I could they sponsor the podcast?
Yes, please.
Please.
Perfect. Please. But they, you know, they play it quite often, and it's one of those movies. Like if it's on, I stop, I watch. It's on in the background. I stop what I'm doing and watch it. It's so good, start to finish. And so when Creed 2 came out, I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's the storyline is a little deeper. We explore, you know, some relationships like Bianca's relationship and all of that stuff, which is great. And there's a baby on the scene with some issues. But start to finish, it's a pretty damn good movie.
It is.
Right.
I think it's poignant. It's poignant in the story that we're being told, because it kind of puts the cap on the Apollo stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
Yes.
we've now officially handed the gauntlets physically down to
Yeah.
Donnie, and it's his story, very much so. So I mean, this movie came out November 21st, 2018. Favorable reviews all around. Like I said, maybe not quite the raves that the first one got, but it was still well received. Grossed $214 million against a production budget of $50 million. Again, a smash success. So it was no
Unbelievable.
surprise that in September 2019 we got a Creed 3 greenlit. So it was announced that Zach Balin was going to be a screenwriter, and additional credit was later given to Ryan Coogler's brother, Keenan Coogler. So they originally had talked to Stallone about coming back.
Yeah.
And once he started hearing the story, he was like, I don't know about this.
Yeah. So he's quoted as saying it's too dark. Like the subject matter, like it's nothing he could relate to.
Yeah.
He didn't think that it was anything that Rocky could relate to. And I think that's true. I don't think that's any reason not to participate in it.
Yeah.
But I get that to a certain degree. I think there's some generational stuff. But yeah, I'm sorry, I interrupted you, but go ahead.
I think you're dead on though. I think it's him being a little stubborn, because I think he clashed with a lot of people, especially on 2. He grabbed the reins a little bit. There's not going to be a lot of the stories that are going to come out, I think, for another probably 10 years or so, maybe even after Stallone's gone, when people are a little more brave to speak up about what actually went down. But because it was in October of 2020 that Michael B. Jordan was confirmed to not only be returning for the movie, but also making it. He's going to be the director. But yeah,
which was his directorial debut.
yes,
Pretty impressive.
a very impressive debut.
Definitely.
We'll talk about it right now. But yeah, I think Stallone backing out of this, saying it was darker. I was like, you're trying to tell us the last however many movies weren't dark? Like,
Well, hello. Let's just pause here for a second, because we were talking earlier while we were eating Philly cheesesteaks.
Yes, thank you,
We had
Amy.
thematic dinner before this.
yes.
To get us in the zone, that I think that, a lot of people go back and watch the Rocky movies, but particularly Rocky 1. Now that, if you really analyze it, people are talking about it now, but people don't recall that, okay, Paulie, his very best friend, is completely abusive to his sister,
Yes.
who he lives with, physically and emotionally, verbally, almost every minute of the day. And then Rocky, I mean, he basically, there's like a date rape scene in that movie.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, how people say, like, age well, right? And then there are some really dark things that happen in that movie. However, in the 70s, right? At the end of the 70s, I mean, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and I think it's that generational thing where it's like, yeah, there was trauma. There was horrific, terrible things that happened to these people. But yep, it just happens and you move forward and you go through with it. And you just you don't, like stew in it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then Creed 3 is like, no, we have to go back. We have to examine why it is the way I am. I suffered childhood trauma. And I don't think, because Sly Stallone and I are great friends. We don't talk as much as we used to, but I don't think that he could get his head wrapped around the fact that it's okay to examine that. And it's important to examine that because generationally, he's of the generation that doesn't do that or didn't do that.
Right.
I'm not saying that he hasn't ever done that, but then you would have to go back and re-examine all of the Rocky movies.
Yeah.
You'd have to examine why was it okay for Adrian to be treated that way, right?
Yeah.
It's not okay. And so like it's just a scab that you don't want to pick, right? So having said all of that, I also don't think he could have what could he have added to that? It's not the story of Rocky and Adonis. It's Adonis's story.
Right.
This is my backstory. This is the other thing. I'm living up in my dad's shadow, always wanting to make sure that I wasn't a mistake. But because of the result of his infidelity in this affair, I was living in group homes. I had a very difficult start until Marianne came in and adopted me
Right.
and took me in. And Bianca even says, and I will say, Bianca's character in 3, you can feel how annoyed Adonis is with her. And as the viewer, you're kind of annoyed with her too. I mean, I was just like, oh my God, is she just going to try to psychoanalyze every single thing? And he literally says, oh, I'm not in the mood to be psychoanalyzed today.
Yeah.
But that's very realistic. Like, hey man, I'm trying to understand you because we've got a child, like we're a family and you have to figure this shit out. Nothing's going to get better till you deal with this. And then his past physically comes back to haunt him.
Yeah.
In the form of Damien. Right. And by the way, Damien is his best pal growing up. And he's, a shitty guy now. But guess what? Guess who Rocky's best friend was? Paulie, the biggest piece of shit that ever walked the earth. Right. And, completely flawed. A totally flawed character that he still delivers a little booze to his grave every now and then. So as a character, Rocky would be unable probably to be part of that examination of his past.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're being really realistic about it, like as a character, what was he gonna bring to the table? What could he add to
He
that?
would go like Michael B. Jordan would go to Adrian the restaurant. No one will be there because there never is. And he'll be like, "Ooh, you probably shouldn't invite a guy. He sounds like bad news." And like, that would be it. Like, like there isn't much more to add except him being like, I don't know.
He's
if
not
should
only
do it."
hitting you, he's hitting his past. He's hitting everything. But the other thing is, Rocky thought that he had already covered all of that, right? Like you take everything that ever beat you down, you take everything and you put that in your fist. And I promise you, if you do that, if you deliver those punches, his head will fall. That's like the big speech he gives them in the corner.
Yeah.
So like, what's he supposed to do? Give that speech again to him?
Yeah.
Like, oh wait, no, he's back. So
Yep.
so I get it. I get it to a point. It's disappointing as the viewer because you're like, Rocky, right? And it's interesting to me because they make very few references to him.
Yeah.
at all.
No, I mean,
I wonder if that was contractually, if they were even allowed to.
I don't know. I
Right.
mean, he's just a ghost in this movie, though. I mean, you don't, and I think it's something fitting too to think about in Rocky 3. And here I've kind of maybe providing like, oh yes, if you guys remember in Rocky, but I'm like, it's like, but Mick dies in 3. Like he loses his trainer halfway through that movie and kind of has to figure it out on his own, going with somebody else. And that's what we get in this one too, is a lot of Duke kind of being that Rocky stand-in. And kind of telling him like, hey man, this guy's trouble. I'm telling you he's trouble. Don't do this. And then sure shit. Yeah, he's manipulating the whole situation because he's been slighted. Like, and it's like he took this fall for his friend when he's a kid. I mean, that's the whole point of the movie. And we'll kind of move, I mean, maybe a little quicker through this one.
Yeah.
But because we're seeing, it's like, yeah, he had this childhood situation where he saw this old lover of his mom and beat the shit out of this guy. All of a sudden, oh wait, he's with dudes. They're gonna beat the shit out of me.
Not even the old lover of his mom. The guy that he was in a group home.
Oh, is that
That's
right?
what I
Yeah,
thought it
he's
was. I
living
thought
in a
he
group
was like an
home.
abusive group home guy.
Yeah, so he was living in a
okay.
group
I thought
home.
it was like
No. It was a group home. He's living there. Damien and him live in this group home with other
Right.
kids. And Leon is the guy that is like the dad of the group home.
oh, okay.
It's called, I forget what the name of the group home is called. It's
It's not like
the,
a foster parent, but there's
no,
a
but
big-
he's like, yeah, remember when we were at like the Shelley or whatever they call
yeah.
it, some name of the group home. And then Bianca doesn't even know. She's like, what are you talking about? You lived in a group home, which is weird because, well, maybe she doesn't know it, but in Creed 1, when he shows up at Delphi, he's just like, these guys are fighting for their lives up here. They're fighting. And he's like, where were you when I was in group homes? Huh? Where were you? So, that's interesting. But anyway, so Bianca apparently was unaware of the fact that he lived in a group home, and maybe she was. But so he was living in this group home, and Leon is the man of the group home that I don't know if he's married to the woman that runs it or the boyfriend or whatever. Anyway, he was living in the group home and is very, very abusive.
Mm-hmm.
And Donnie even says like, look, I'm not saying we were angels, that we weren't, like knucklehead kids basically, but nobody deserved the beatings and the abuse that we took. What I appreciated in that movie was that there was just one quick flashback to what looked like a makeshift like punching bag that's made out of a mattress, and you could hear and see that there was abuse going on. They didn't show it. They don't, which I thought was really, really powerful and really unique for movies in this day and age, because they tend to have to show everything, right?
Right.
So he just alludes to it, but I think that, because it's very, very traumatic. I think that's very respectful of the audience. You don't know what's going to trigger the audience, but it also allows the audience to make some assumptions like, how bad was it? What was it? You know what I mean? Like
Right.
they don't have to connect every single dot. You don't need to know that. It doesn't matter. It was his trauma. It's whatever it was to him. And it was very straight to both of those boys, young boys, right? And Damien's the older of the two. So he's looking out for his younger housemate.
Right.
So he crosses paths with Leon outside the liquor store, and he's like, Leon, and he's a kind of older guy. He's like a drunk, where you can tell he has no idea where he even is probably.
Yeah, right.
And he's like, well, you remember me? And then he just starts beating the crap out of him. And I don't know if y'all noticed, but when he's doing that, the motion of him beating up Leon is almost exactly how in Creed 1, where they show him in like the detention center.
Yeah.
And he gets in the fight and she's like, he's a great kid, but he just fights all the time. It's the exact same motion. It's almost the exact same shot.
Wow.
So it's just like, oh my God, yeah, it's always there. It's always present. And that's how he deals with it. So yeah, so then Damien shows up so these other kids, the guys that are with Leon, jump Adonis. Damien shows up with a gun, doesn't shoot anybody, but he's got a gun and he had like a prior. And so the cops show up, they run, Damien gets caught, Adonis
Yeah.
ran away and
His
gets
boxing
free.
career, his promising like boxing career is
Yeah.
over.
He was a Golden Glove.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the best and documented the best. He was a Golden Glove champion. I mean, in LA, that's unbelievable. From
Yeah.
Crenshaw neighborhood. And you see kind of like one of the first scenes is where you aren't quite sure what they're doing. He sneaks out of his house. Damien picks him up. He's got a bag of money. You're like, what's going down? Where are they going? And I was like, is it a drug deal? Is it a gun? Like, what is he running money for somebody? And nope, he's going to do backdoor, boxing fight, but it's not a seedy boxing fight. It's a Golden Glove championship fight.
Yeah.
He just happens to go through the back, and he does place money. Adonis bets money on him. But yeah, he's a great boxer. Great young talented boxer, and he just is locked away for 18 years.
Yeah. And then he comes back into his life, like you said. And it's interesting. It comes at a time when they're experiencing Donnie's own daughter fighting in school.
They use like the exact same line. She's great. She fights.
Yeah.
Like it's the
All the
exact
time.
same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's just like it's in the blood, right? It's like it's just they just feel like this is how they respond. And it's just so again, you kind of find Donnie at like a moment where he's vulnerable, right? He's kind of retired from boxing. Like he's like, I'm done. Like I don't want to do this anymore.
He's training a new boxer, very a la which Rocky is that? Rocky 5, where he trains what the actual real boxer in real life. What's his name? And then they end up having the fist fight outside.
Yes. Oh God.
A street match.
Don't
Rocky
ask me
wins
stuff
it.
about Rocky 5.
I know. Sorry, folks. Yeah, that's about as much as I wanted to retain about Rocky
But
5.
But yeah, it is like that. And then, Dame kind of like squeezes his way back in there. They have this big match with this person that Donnie's training. Is it Chavez, right? Or
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
and he's
And he gets hurt because Dame he's a cheap fighter. He's a smart fighter. So he wants a shot, and Donnie's like, what do you do? Keep your enemies closest, like, how am I going to protect myself from this guy? By helping him, right?
Yeah.
That'll quell the issue. And then he's like, great, well, Chavez has gone through every sparring partner, so let's bring this guy in.
right, Victor.
And,
Again,
right,
back.
right. And he's like, no. And Duke is like, don't do it. This guy's bad news. Don't bring him in, not even to spar. And so he starts sparring. And in one of the first sparring sessions, he tags a cheap hit on Chavez's left shoulder, which is a really dirty hit, illegal hit, and injures him slightly, not a lot. But then during the fight, so he's kind of planted these seeds of weakness. So he goes for the shoulder a couple more times in that fight. He knows exactly where he's vulnerable. He throws a dirty elbow shot, which is awesome. Like, I didn't even know that those dirty hits happen. I know people put shit on their gloves and, like stuff. But I had not seen a hit like that. That was really pretty cool how they shot that. And then, so he's smart. He knows what he has to do to get to the next level because he's thought about it for 18 years.
Right. Fixes the whole incident with Drago getting hurt. Can't be in this match against Chavez. So yeah, Dame gets his shot and he wins the title. And it's like, and Donnie, he's like, holy shit, this dude just completely manipulated me all the way, took advantage of my situation, took advantage of like our past because he feels like he's owed this because of what he did for Donnie. And I think Jonathan Majors, man, I can't spend too much time talking about him. It's really unfortunate of what kind of person he's turned out to be in real life because what a talent he is on screen. It's just complete. He is kind of Dame.
Yeah. And well, it was kind of like this was the first and probably only thing I've seen since all that came out. And I got to say, I'm watching it. I'm like, well, like, I really don't like this guy now. Like, it kind of seeps into the movie and, like, as bad as it sounded, made it more effective for me.
Yes.
Like, because I don't like this person on a personal level, for their allegations.
Yeah.
So now that this is the villain of the movie and the way he plays it, I'm not going to, talk too much about it, but there's kind of this, like, childlike quietness and then he, like, attacks.
Well, but he is still a child. His childhood was completely stunted. He was spent 18 years. So he didn't mature out of that moment.
Right.
He even admits like, after they have their match and he's just like, it's not on you. It's not on you either.
Well, and it kind of comes up.
This was
too.
done to us.
Right.
And we're beating each other up for it.
Yeah.
We didn't even do it. So that brings us to that scene, to their fight.
Right.
Which is completely different than the first two movies, the way it's shot. So,
Oh my gosh. And it's such a cool sequence. This is where
okay. So, do you think it's a cool sequence?
I loved
Did
it.
you like it? Okay. So when you saw it, you loved it. How about you?
I'm pro it because like leading into it, I had heard like Michael B. Jordan's directing this. He's going to bring in anime influences, and he's also
Did you know that before you saw the movie?
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay.
That's what
gotcha.
I'm saying.
I
So
did
when
not
saw
know that
it,
before I saw
was
it.
like, and I'm not a big anime fan
Sure.
really, but when I saw it, I was like, this is adding something to it because it's not
Sure.
being shot like a traditional movie.
Yeah.
So
What
when-
did you think?
So when I saw it in the theater, I did not enjoy that aspect of it.
Wow.
I shouldn't say that. Let me back up. I enjoyed it. I thought it went on too long.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So I thought it could have been edited down. Visually, I thought it was beautiful and powerful.
Yeah.
I thought it was just too long. And what I really missed, which now I've rewatched it numerous times, but in that moment, what I really missed was the energy of the crowd and the energy that you get
Yeah.
from that. However, I recently have rewatched it a number of times, and now I do enjoy it because I understood it better. Because when I saw it in the theater, I went in wanting it to be like the previous two movies, and to be fair, like the boxing scenes you saw in all the Rocky ones, but it wasn't, and it was a lot different, and I do really enjoy it and appreciate it now. And then, like when I saw it the first time in the theater, I didn't notice that instead of the ropes in one of the hit sequences, he gets thrown into the bars of prison.
Yeah.
Right. And I thought, okay, that's a little over the top. Or when I did recognize it, I was like, eh. But then it's like, no. Like give it a chance. And it just took me, and I'm sure it took other people seeing it in the theater
Mm-hmm.
to process that in a proper way.
Yeah. Because what you're seeing is like, yeah, the physical like embodiment of them fighting through their history in this ring, right?
And
Like,
it's so dark,
yeah.
and it's cloudy, and it's hazy, and what I find interesting is it's not as gory as some other fight sequences. I may be misremembering it, but there's not a lot of like blood splatter and
I
stuff
don't
like
think
that.
so,
It's just a lot of body blows and contained. It's very, very raw, but it's not gruesome.
Yeah. It's a chess match and not a throwdown beat 'em up, right? It's like you can see they're kind of like they're trying to outclass each other. And then I think Duke makes that comment at the one point at the end of the fight. He's like, look, you've been up into this fight, you've been boxing. He's like, now I need you to fight.
Yes.
And it's like, and that's when he's like, yeah, this is where I'm going to end it. He's like, this is checkmate. And he literally calls it like that. And it's like, yep, like this is, show it to me. And
Yeah, Duke says, I need you to let go of your fear. Let go of the guilt. Let go of whatever was and walk into what is. And it's like, hell yeah. And then then it's a whole nother gear.
Yep.
It's like a sixth gear.
Right.
And he's just like, good. I got that all out of my system. We beat the crap out of one another in that sequence. And we dealt with it. Great. Now that's to the side. Now let's go.
Yeah. Now win the match.
Now win the match. And you got to think that Dame's kind of, I don't know if he's thinking quite the same thing, because he comes out very much kind of the same stride and everything. And you'll notice that in 3, he fights more like Apollo.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, when he wins it, it's shorter jabs and it's more powerful and quicker. And it's not these big shovel hooks. And,
Right.
like when you watch Rocky movies, he's swinging so hard that they both end up on the mat.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what? And so that's not, which I'm sure, what do I know of boxing? Almost nothing, except for this series of movies we've been talking about. But this is just, it's the finesse and the dance and the movement of Apollo that you really see him truly embody himself as a Creed.
Right.
Not Apollo, but himself as Adonis Creed. Like
Yeah.
he's arrived. And it's just like, yeah, he even says, like, I think his quote is like, he did it. It was his fight. Like he did it for him. And like, he's not just fighting Dame.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
He fought beyond it, right?
Yeah.
Even like with his mom having like the stroke and
And then his mom dies.
yeah.
Marianne dies. I mean, that's his Mickey,
Yep.
Right.
you know?
Or in a way, it's his Apollo. This one, right? Of
True.
like seeing the person who's been his support system through this and having to rise above it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's an interesting movie, and I think it'll be interesting to see how all of these hold up over time. Because ultimately, this movie then made $275 million against a budget of $75 million.
Unbelievable.
Every one of these movies just kept making more and more and more money. And I think that gets us to a good transition point for a coulda, woulda, shoulda. Where do you go from here? What's Creed 4? Is there a Creed 4?
Well, interestingly, when I stopped to get the cheese steaks on the way here, I was waiting for them. And I happened to be wearing a T-shirt that says Creed on it that my kids got me because that's what level of mutation I've achieved. And unfortunately, people think it's the band and not the movie. But anyway, it just says Creed. So the guy's kind of giving me a weird look. And he said, "What's going on tonight?" And I said, "Actually, I'm going to a podcast to talk about the Creed movie franchise." And he's like, "No way." So we talked for about 15 minutes about it. He thinks there's got to be a Creed 4. And I said, "All right, but," he's like, "because we want to see Rocky one more time.
Mm-hmm.
We want to see Rocky." Now, I have seen clips where Stallone says he hasn't even seen Creed 3. I call bullshit on that because he's got a home
Definitely.
theater. He knows
Yeah.
watched it. But he's just like, "Yeah, no interest in it, But I think that's bullshit because he's listed as a producer on Creed 3. So it's like, dude, you made money. You watched it.
Yeah.
But
He won't admit it, though, because
So-
he's got principles.
right. So I'm discussing with this guy, and I was thinking, like, well, I don't know if you have to have a 4. I'd be perfectly fine if you didn't,
Mm-hmm.
because that, like, rule of 3, and it's like it's perfectly balanced. We're fine. We've closed it. What else do you have to explore? Now, if you had a 4, they've left some seeds there in 3. His daughter is a natural fighter. Obviously, there are a lot of pro women fighters. It's
Yeah.
huge. It's amazing. Which, by the way, before I forget, in the training montages in Creed 3, I have a huge amount of respect for the number of female fighters that were in that movie.
Oh, yeah.
and we're
Training him. Yeah.
training him. And one of them has a great line. Oh my God, I didn't write it down. But she's like, oh my God, what is it? Something about like, oh, are we sparring today or she just is giving him shit, and it's great. And it's really subtle. But again, tribute to these great one-liners that are peppered throughout this entire franchise that just are these little hooks that keep you there. So she could come back.
Right.
We fast forward to the future where she is fighting. Maybe something happens to her terrible in the ring,
Yeah.
by like a crappy promoter or whatever. Who knows? She could meet, she could be injured or meet her demise. That would be horrific, but could happen. And then Rocky has to come back to get him through that to fight. Or I don't know. So that's a possibility. Maybe there's a daughter angle.
Because then she would be another Creed, right? Or maybe that's just who you leave the franchise in the hands of, right? It's like she's like maybe getting him through like his last fight or something like that. And
She could be the trainer. But the point is, I think if you do a 4, the people want there to be a Rocky moment.
yeah.
Had there been a Rocky moment in 3, I think everyone probably would have been happy.
Yeah.
I
Right.
kind of understand, as we just discussed, why there wasn't, but we kind of would have been like, oh, all right, great. I don't know how you would have done it, right? It may have been a little forced and contrived. So 4 would have to be, I don't know. It would be tough.
It's a hard thing to think of what the next leg of his arc was. I mean, it would be Rocky 10. an official, if you wanted to keep counting these as
Sure.
Rocky movies, right? It's like
Yeah.
Rocky 7, 8, 9. But yeah, it does feel like it kind of has to end the story for both Adonis and Rocky in a satisfying way, which, God, I wouldn't want that responsibility.
Yeah, and also like I feel like, and like I said, I'm gonna say it again. I haven't seen all the Rocky movies. I feel like one of the things was like, oh, he's still boxing.
Yeah.
Thing with Michael B. Jordan is I could believe he's in a boxing movie for another 30 years because he's like so fit and young looking.
Well, I mean, you look at it too, right? So Rocky Balboa was 2006. It's almost 30 years after Rocky 1 came out. And like Michael B's only been doing this for 10, and it's so funny here. And they're just like, well, gosh, doesn't he look old, and doesn't he look like he should be retired by now? And it's like, does he? He looks like he's
He looks
35
good.
and thriving. Like he's 35 and
Yeah,
thriving.
35. And no, I would say like there could be another one, but I guess here's the balance is it would be harder to have Stallone, but I feel like I want another time gap. It doesn't have to be as long, but like you said, enough time for like the daughter to be older. I mean, they can just jump time in movies. It doesn't have to actually
Yeah, I mean,
match
they
our
jumped a
time.
considerable amount of time. I mean, because his daughter is like 8 years
Yeah,
old.
they
or
did a pretty
something.
big jump between 2 and 3. That's why I didn't know. Like, I like the idea of like an older looking Michael B. Jordan still in the ring, but the problem is he's not going to look like that for another 40 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to take him a while because he's aging like fine wine. It is. I mean, it should be noted though. Rocky came out in 1976. So if you'd make another Creed 2 years, that's 50 years since Rocky came out.
Oh, well,
Just
that-
saying,
amazing.
that might be something they look to.
I was 5 when it came out.
Wow.
I know. That's how old I am, guys.
Don't have to date yourself like that.
I can't
don't
help
look
when
a day over 30.
No, wait. I can't help when I was born. I was born at the perfect time, man. I got the whole Rocky. I got it all. Jaws. You name it. I saw all
You
the
live
good
with
ones.
the
I
Rocky.
got to see all the
franchise.
cool concerts, you know. No, but I don't know. I don't know what way you're gonna go. There's the daughter angle. There's the I mean, Bianca could get say. I mean, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's gotta what else do you have to avenge? I mean, what's the next level?
I think that's
Maybe his daughter goes to the Olympics.
Ooh.
Fights in the Olympics, but I don't know. Rocky comes back for that. That's the one thing he never did. He never won a
or maybe they need
Gold
support to get a hearing impaired boxer
Oh.
into a big event, and
That's-
they're both using their clout to try and push her forward, right? And I don't know. I'm just shooting
I don't know.
from the hip here.
I also, you could get, what about like Rocky and Drago? Do you think they've like mended things? Could they be like a team up?
Victor helped train Donnie
Right.
for the last, so they're pals. They're training together.
Yeah,
Mhm.
So
that was a cool moment.
and Drago, they go back, and they're still training. He's active. He's still fighting. So maybe he comes back and helps Drago. Yeah, he helps Victor Jr.
I like it.
Could be.
I just want more Dolph Lundgren. He looked very nice in
Yeah.
like
But
Creed
okay,
2.
is it just me or did he look like he shrunk about a foot? Because like,
maybe a little.
Could be how they shoot him.
yeah, but I mean, like, go back and look at some of the stills. He is like a foot taller than Stallone, but
Oh.
then in this movie, he's not.
No,
Don't you lose height when you get older?
you do a little bit. You start shrinking.
Yeah, I used to be 5'11".
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
And
only
you're
5'5" now.
What?
Yeah, you lose a lot, guys.
Wow. I don't
Hit
buy
50 and you just collapse. No structural integrity left. Well, I don't know. So should there be one? I think, well, as we've discussed, every time they make one, they make millions and millions and millions more. Each one has made what, over $100 million?
that. Yeah.
Easily.
And the last one made $200 million?
230, right?
Yeah. 275 million.
Right.
Wow.
So why there's no reason they wouldn't try. I'm
Right.
not saying it would be good.
But I feel like, yeah, Michael B. or even like Coogler, if he's going to executive produce again, which he did all the movies, even if he wasn't involved as directing. But I think they wouldn't come back unless they had the right story. And so I think
Oh,
that's
yeah.
that's the challenge right now. Somebody's got to find what's the best way to continue this, or is it like, no, this was. It does feel like there's something in the tank for one more, but
There's got to be, only because they made no reference. Is there one or two references to Rocky in Creed 3?
I don't remember.
not even.
I mean,
I don't even think I heard his name.
if there's got to be less than a handful. I don't
Yeah.
recall any, and I recall most of the lines from these movies, but I don't know. It'd be interesting. So, okay, so should they? I don't know. Could they? Sure. Would they?
We'll
Script
find out.
dependent. I
We
don't
should
know.
probably
It
get
looks the guy at the cheesesteak place wants one.
We should get him on next.
And I'm with
Yeah.
him.
Get-
His
get
name's
a call
Mike.
in.
He's awesome.
Mike, if you're out there, write in to show me the franchise at podcast@gmail.com.
There you go.
And we'll read your response on the air next week.
And who knows, Michael B could be listening.
He might be. Oh, maybe he'll come on.
He's got a lot of downtime.
Oh my
with
God!
his
If
new
he
video
comes on, I'm
announcement.
just gonna sit here and stare at
He'll
him.
announce
Like, can I eat
34
a
on here."
cheesesteak off of any part of your body? Because he is an amazing looking human being.
That would be
He's
a
the
moment to
handsomest.
remember. Like many other moments in this franchise, we should talk about our power rankings and pick
Oh,
your
yeah.
favorite moments, top 3.
Oh my God!
Because we talked about quotes. I felt like we peppered a lot of quotes, but maybe
Yeah.
we just gotta pigeonhole the moments here, and we can be short about it because we covered a lot of those.
We've been talking for a long time. Man, I can't. Oh, God, only 3. But that's one
3.
from each movie, right?
Yeah, if you can think of one that you love from each movie, pick your favorite moment.
Good Lord, I'm not going first.
Oh, I
have to go
can go first. I've got a few loaded.
Go for it.
I'm still feeling it out as I go, but the number one, and let's say these aren't ranked. I'm going to say one of them is the scene where Rocky goes back to his restaurant and Drogo's just sitting there facing the other way, and just them. Like I said, I've never seen these Rocky movies, but that scene worked for me, and that just shows how good it was because I could see it all from the pictures on the wall, the way they were acting. I love that. I think one of the best scenes, like you had mentioned, is the mirror scene. That's like the integral scene of the first one, I think, because it kind of surmises everything about the character and is also like, this is useful for boxing, I'm assuming. I don't know. And number 3, I feel bad, but I'm going to kind of steal another thing you said, but you said a lot of things, so I feel good
said
about
all
it.
the words.
You said all the words, so I feel good. The scene from 2, and I'm picking a lot from 2 that stuck with me was when Rocky, after Adonis hears about his daughter's hearing issue, how Rocky has to go in and just tell him like how he needs to handle this. Because in my mind, I was watching this for the second time. I didn't remember what happened. I was like, someone needs to talk to dude. Like someone needs to talk to him because he's making me angry with his reaction. And like, your wife cannot see you react that way when this is happening. Like that just made me mad.
But she did.
Mm-hmm.
She saw it on his face and she's tearing up and
She's trying to hide
and
it.
all the moms in the world know. It's like, oh yeah, sometimes it's just you and the baby, and you're just like, oh my God, you know, like, oh, I guess it's me. I guess I'm gonna have to do this alone. That's the exchange. And again, there's no dialogue.
Right.
That's what's just so amazing about all of these movies. The script is pretty Spartan, you know. It's all 3 movies are so visual.
And it's so well acted. Just
Oh,
everybody's given their
God.
A game, which is what makes these just fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you-
What are yours? Do I have to go? Okay.
Go for it.
So I just think, again, I keep going back to the visuals and the script, but because those are 2 things to make up movies. No, but all right. So number 1, I think just the absolute how they captured Philadelphia in one, because for so many people, younger people, this may have been their first introduction to Rocky.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we're forgetting because we've all seen Rocky. You
Or
have.
bits and
You see
pieces,
enough,
yeah.
enough to be dangerous,
Right.
right? But for a lot of people, like kids in their my kids hadn't seen all of the Rocky, but they love Creed because I make them watch all the time. But that was their first introduction,
Yeah.
and so it was perfectly done because you got enough Rocky to know what was going on. You didn't have to have seen all of the things, but just the respect for the original and for the city of Philadelphia, because they captured all of it. Old school Philadelphia and modern Philadelphia, as modern as Philadelphia can be. So that, and then there are I think the quotes, so my top 3 quotes.
Let's do it.
I know, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are a lot of little one-liners like I talked about, but is as long as you're talking, you're not listening.
Mhm.
That's a great Rocky one, because it's not. It's kind of delivered kind of quickly in like this melee
Mm-hmm.
of where he's getting in a fight with his sparring partner. He just can't get past himself and get out of his own head to see that like everyone's here to help you, and he just argues all the time, and he just kind of pulls him aside, and it's like it's what every parent ever wants to say to their kids, just like stop talking and like listen. So that was great. But then in 2, when they just have to completely redo everything, and he says, if you want to change things in a big way, then you got to make some big changes,
Mhm.
because they retool him. He in 1 he fights more like Rocky, and in 2 he fights a lot more like Apollo.
Mhm.
Footwork, like you said, you were talking about the tire, and then Duke has some great lines. I'm cheating because one of it, he's just like got the shit kicked out of him, and Duke just says, the higher you get, the harder it gets. That's life. And that's absolutely true. And everybody
Right.
can relate to that. But then I need you to let go of your fear, let go of the guilt, let go of whatever was, and walk into what is. And it's just like, that was Duke's moment. That's when he totally replaces Rocky,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And that's a great line. And he delivers it so well.
Yeah.
And it's just like, look, you just dealt with that. Drop it. Go forward. Now you got to fight. So, I mean, the writing is just so good. It's just like Creed is perfect. Creed 2, mwah, beautiful. And then Creed 3, it's some really nice icing on top of a beautiful cake, you know, and some sprinkles there. I don't know how you're going to follow it up.
It's a challenge for somebody else to take.
I know. I
But
can't
me.
wait to talk about
those
it.
are great though. I
those
mean,
are
I
good
think
ones.
picking the moments there, because I mean the quotes, they do make this movie. I mean they make all these
I
sports.
didn't even
movies.
get to the female quotes. That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
Because okay, I'm just cheating. Now I have a top 5 list.
That's fine. Yeah, go for it.
Because really the flying buttresses of support in this movie are Bianca and Marianne.
Yes.
100%.
1000%. And their lines, so many of them are just looks
Yes.
and just a raised eyebrow. And like, seriously, you're a fool. Like, do we have to go through this again?
Mhm.
You know, and it's honestly like when Bianca kind of gets really trying to psychoanalyze anything, like she's not really enjoyable to watch, because she's kind of lost her own identity in that moment. Like, I'm trying to fix you. And then all of a sudden she's like, no, you know what? Figure it out. I'm going to go keep taking care of our child and protecting our family.
Yeah.
Like and I'm going to go back to myself. I'm going to produce music. I'm going to do, like, I lost my hearing. You don't think that giving up my dream of performing, you don't think that affected me? And where were you? You never asked me about that. And it's done in such an expert way. 1, acted, but 2, written. Like, you don't have to go deeper than that. It's like, it's still all about you, Adonis.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so yeah, we could do a whole thing just on the women of Creed. And
They're fantastic.
they are absolutely.
I mean, I would definitely say, I mean, it's like, that's a moment too of just her trying to deal with like this revelation that her biggest fear like came true, right? Of like knowing that their daughter was going to end up without, you know, with hearing issues, and she's just like heartbroken. I love him kind of taking her out and like, yeah. And it's like, here, this is where I come to deal with my shit. And it's just like, it's like finally, like he finally stepped. I mean, I'm going to pick all the moments where Donnie fucking stepped up. You know, it's sort of like,
Yeah.
that's a big one right there. Cause up until that point, she was just carrying his ass, and she carried his ass through so much, even in 3. And like, he just is like, wake
The
up.
biggest hits he takes are from her.
Yeah.
Right.
She just body blows him, just like, what?
She just
Yeah.
slaps sense into him. I
She
think
shuts
he's
him
like,
down.
oh yeah, duh. Like, this is a person I love. Why would I do this to this person?
Yeah. Oh, you haven't. I lost my hearing, and I'm
Yeah.
a musician.
Yeah. I,
Really?
to the same end, I love when he kind of talks back at Rocky when he's like, I'm not going to get the treatment for the chemo. And he's like, what are you doing? Like, weren't you the one who was just telling me to like go and deal
You
with
fight,
this?
I fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
When he
it.
tries
I love
to
you
help,
have the
he goes-
quote for
he
every one of
goes-
these.
When he tries to help, he's like, get off me, old man.
Yeah.
You're not my family. You made that clear. And like when Rocky says all that stuff, and then he's like, oh, why'd you say that?
Yeah.
You idiot. Like, why'd you do that? He just felt, because he's got these defensive walls too, right? It's all based, all of this at the end of it, it's all based on insecurity. But since we talked about the women, but what a stroke of brilliance in the character of Bianca to be like, we're going to have this beautiful, powerful woman. I should say powerful and beautiful woman who is so talented musically, but she's going to be losing her hearing.
Yeah. It's like Beethoven.
Yeah, but it's just like, wow, like what a brilliant, and they don't dwell on it. It's not a huge, but that's her cross to bear, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we just see her carrying it and carrying it and carrying it, and then it's passed on to her child, and it's so brilliant, and it's at times very subtle, like when he's, Rocky's sick, and she's like, you ruined a big night that I worked really, really hard for. He's like, don't shut me out, and she just really subtly takes out her hearing aid,
Mm-hmm.
and like, I'm not listening, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like,
She has a way to just let him know.
tune it out, literally.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh my God, you guys, we could be here all night,
I
but I
know.
won't. So, all right, you did your top 3 though.
Yeah. Well,
I
yeah.
think you only did 2.
Yeah.
Give us one more, Tom, please.
Come on.
Like the end. I love that. See, I love Rocky. But I'm stealing yours when Duke gives him the pep talk in 3. And I was like, this dude needs more roles. What is he doing?
Mhm.
Why? And they knew they had somebody who could step in. If Stallone was going to keep playing hardball, like, we got enough faith.
Yeah.
Ed Harris is going to step in and do this. And he is just, like I said, I pegged him back in 2001. That guy's a phenomenal actor. And I'm just
And you
like,
haven't seen The Wire.
I haven't seen The Wire.
So
Everyone
you
tells me
have
I gotta watch it.
almost no credibility.
He's got Remember the
credibility.
Titans.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, Remember the Titans is
mean,
God. Can we
that's-
do one about that? Good Lord. How about just football movies? Holy
There we
shit.
go.
Please
That's
have
our
me
next-
back.
Trust me, I've
Yes.
thought about it. We have to break it down by decade.
That's fine. I'm here. And I mean, we could touch on Rudy. It's not
Or,
my favorite. But
Waterboy.
yeah.
I was going to say Brian's song, but
Oh, we can go there.
Never
Longest
seen.
Yard, the
Yeah,
original.
yeah.
Oh my God.
all right,
Go.
guys.
All right.
I think we got to bring the podcast to an end. And
Fine.
it has been
Come on, Tom.
it has been a pleasure though having you on. Do you have anything you'd like to plug before you walk away?
Creed 4. Starring me. I'm in charge of the towels. No, gosh, we have so many things going on. Well, as always, you can come down to Comedy Sports because that's great. But yeah, I'm in Autonomy coming up. I think that's April 23rd. That's at Comedy Sports in the garage. And then Voyager is second Tuesday of every month. Great show at Landmark Lanes. It's free. It's been going on this is our 8th year. And it's great. It's improv based off of stand-up sets. So if you have ever wanted to try stand-up as well, you can come down there, put your name in the bucket, get a bucket spot. We do 2 sets of improv based on stand-up. And it's fantastic. It's the best show in town, in my opinion. And then, yeah, just if anyone out there listening is like, hey, I want to do something to get out of my comfort zone, I would encourage you to go down to Comedy Sports, take a improv class, or go to Interchange and take one of their improv classes, and just get out there, try it, get out of your comfort zone and change your life a little bit. Mix it up for the rest of 2024. I was so thrilled to be here. I really appreciate it. And I know that my choice of Creed may have been unexpected.
No, we
But
loved it.
I think that's what is so great about the movie, is that it appeals to everybody, and just the perfect cross section of it just covers it all for it's like you don't have a soul if you don't like these movies.
I do. I really like. I think I was a little lukewarm on like 2 coming in, and then
Yeah.
you kind of like resold me. I'm like, man, you know what? I gotta watch that again.
I'm telling you, man. I did that with 3. I rewatched 3 most recently, and I was like, oh man. And you know what? Here's the thing. It's art, right? And art affects you in different ways at different times, depending on what's going on in your life.
Right.
Right. And it's open for interpretation. So you may not have liked Rocky the first time. I didn't really like Creed 3 the first time I saw it. But then I recently rewatched it. And, life happens in between your first watch and your second watch. And it was completely different for me. That fight scene was completely different for me the second time I watched it, in the confines of my own home, in a cozy spot. It's just me, like, really noticing all of the things. And yeah, so it affects you at different times of your life. And that's what's so great about art and great about the movies. You never know.
Well said.
Yeah.
Thanks.
love that.
Scene.
Yeah.
I love it. Fred, anything you got?
No, I'm still taking a break from performing. Just keep listening to the podcast.
You got to grow out that mustache.
I
dude.
know, yeah. Once my mustache comes in, when I'm 50 or so, I'll be back out there.
There you
That's when mine came in. When I turned
about
50.
Damn,
Yeah.
that's how long
That
ago.
50 mustache. I'm looking forward to it.
How
Fred
about
Dyer.
you? Do you got anything?
I don't. I mean, I got this podcast. We are Show Me the Franchise podcast.
Oh, wait. We didn't plug our 3-person show. Oh, next time.
Oh, yeah.
Next time. Not ready for the big reveal.
Not ready for that yet, but
Yeah.
it's in the works. It's like Creed 4. It's going to come, but we just don't know when or what it's going to look
Waiting
like.
for a writer.
Exactly.
Oh, and a director.
Yeah.
And some talent.
Please rate and review the show if you are a fan of this show. We will appreciate 5-star review if you're really loving it. It takes 10 seconds. Just scroll down whatever listening app you are on. Give us that good 5-star rating. You can find us in our link tree for our Show Me the Franchise resources around social, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, all that good stuff. Join the Patreon. It's easy. It's cheap. We are bringing you bonus episodes on there once a month right now, with more content coming in the future. And stay tuned for next time, where we'll be talking about the Star Wars prequels.
Whoa. Who do you have for that?
Whoa, you'll
You
know.
can't even disclose it.
That's
We'll tell you off mic.
I was
yeah.
going to say that's competitive. That's a competitive sport.
we're gonna use the Force to send that message. Stay tuned for our next Patreon episode, which will be something Star Wars related to. We haven't decided, but we're celebrating this year. We're going big for May the 4th for this 2024. Amy, thank you again for being here. You are absolutely awesome.
Thanks so much.
Yes,
it was a pleasure.
Thanks for bringing us some Johns.
Yeah,
Watch it,
thank you for the
John. Yeah.
Johns.
Pretty good. Whiz Wit.
Ah,
Yeah, Whiz Wit.
thank you all for listening.
can Look that up.
Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time.
Is charge my phone, drive, listening to you. And what they talk to you about will